Chapter 2271. The Scriptures of the Future. Moxie and Demon Emperor Wutian were both immortals. They were the law-defying geniuses of the ancient era who had fought countless battles. Therefore, without any hesitation, they made a very strong response. A brilliant Bodhi glow burst out of their bodies as an ancient mountain was vaguely visible behind them. Rumors said that the end of the path of Buddhism was the Western paradise. Every Buddha that had achieved the Tao was residing in the mystical mountains located in the Western paradise. The mountain that they had summoned was similar to the mystical mountains. It contained the will of the primary force of the Buddhas. That being said, they were only able to achieve such a feat not because of their outstanding attainments in the path of Buddhism, but because Huang Fu-ju had claimed the scriptures when he defeated the Buddhas on his own. If the scriptures of the future were meant for the real monks to practice, what they were summoning now was the outline of the real mystical mountains. Bang bang bang! The demonic intent in Qin Nan's body burst out like a vast ocean, shattering the illusionary figure of the mystical mountain into pieces in a savage manner. Moxie and Demon Emperor Wutian immediately felt a great pressure. They immediately counterattacked by summoning clones with their Bodhi arts. Each clone had a Bodhi golden lotus pedestal under it. The pedestal expanded rapidly in all directions. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the demonic intent bursting out from Qin Nan's figure transformed into two enormous chains, which shattered the clones into pieces like lightning. Mo Xie and Demon Monarch Wutian's bodies swayed, and they summoned their Buddhist weapons to resist the attack. However, the chains emitted waves of majestic and invisible energy waves, which directly knocked down the Buddhist weapons and wrapped around them, pulling them in the middle. The energy wave was none other than the power of the rules of the immortal demon. Furthermore, it was twice as powerful as before. It's our chance. The art of the immortal demon that Qin Nan is channeling has reached an unprecedented level. If we push him further, he might be able to break the balance of the power in his body and focus on the demon instead. Moxie was overjoyed instead of being shocked. He quickly transmitted his voice. Use that move. Demon Sovereign Wutian immediately nodded. Not only did the two of them not resist, they even went along with the pulling force, and in just half a breath, their figures gathered together. They did not intend to leave now. Western Tathagata Mantra. Moxie and Demon Emperor Wutian roared in their hearts. The demonic blood essence in their bodies began to burn, and under the effect of a secret art, they turned it into the purest energy. In an instant, the heaven and earth within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles were illuminated by the Buddhist light. An indescribable majestic figure of a Buddha appeared at the end of the sky. It had a dignified appearance, and its figure seemed to be both real and illusionary. It was emitting an incomparably vast ancient pressure. The Buddha opened its mouth and began to recite ancient scriptures. With each word, boundless power of the Buddhist Tao would surge, transforming into mountains and hand seals that slammed into Qin Nan. Qin Nan's boundless demonic intent immediately suffered a great blow and began to weaken. However, every time Qin Nan's demonic intent fell, it would rise again, and it was stronger than the previous time. That's it. Moxie and Demon Sovereign Wutian were even more excited. Buzz. However, their excitement did not last for long. Their minds trembled violently for some reason. It was as if a terrifying hand had reached out from the unseen world and tightly clutched their hearts. Roar! Qin Nan let out a roar as his hair drifted wildly. A shocking sight took place. The demonic intent that he was unleashing underwent a great change, as if it had broken through some kind of barrier. It now possessed a shocking will of immortality. In addition to it, demonic flames began to burn every inch of his body, which eventually turned into an illusionary crimson robe that soared into the sky with an imperious aura. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Qin Nan's figure burst out at an unbelievable speed. Saber intents, fist shadows, and all kinds of Tao arts and master arts surged at the Buddha figure like a storm. The Buddha figure was destroyed in less than 2 breaths' time. Moxie and Demon Sovereign Wutian shuddered. Their eyes flickered with astonishment. They did want Qin Nan to have a breakthrough, but wasn't Qin Nan a little too much? We can't keep fighting, we have to leave at once, Moxie immediately said. He clearly knew that it was a rare opportunity. They might even be able to turn Qin Nan into a demon. However, the art of the immortal demon was already suppressing them. At this rate, their true selves would be exposed. Besides, Qin Nan was completely unreasonable when he went berserk. If they were killed by Qin Nan in the end, it would be a great loss. Damn it! Zhou Xuandao and Jia Yi cursed simultaneously. At this rate, the balance in Qin Nan's body would be broken. The impenetrable sacred flesh, the art of the immortal demon, etc. that Qin Nan had put in so much effort to merge with them would be completely meaningless. In the end, the demon cultivators would surely dominate the battle. Qin Nan, wake up at once. The 2 ancient authorities immediately used their move. Their thunderous voices penetrated Qin Nan's soul. I didn't think the 2 monks would give me such a little gift and let me see something like this. Seeing this from afar, Song smiled. He was supposed to be the one to eliminate Tang Qingshan. If that was the case, he would have to face the enraged Qin Nan instead. It was going to be quite troublesome. As for the cultivators nearby, they were utterly terrified, as they were afraid that Qin Nan would unleash his wrath on them. Blockhead Tang, a panicked voice suddenly came from the distance. The cultivators in the Master Realm were startled when they saw the voice. A 9 Heavens Supreme? It was already shocking enough that a 9 Heavens Supreme had entered the northern battlefield, let alone the fact that the 3rd Forbidden Area was completely sealed off by the Supreme Haotian badge. Those below the Master Realm and above were not allowed to enter. Why was a 9 Heavens Supreme here? Blockhead Tang, how are you? You? Chapter 2272. She once met a young man when she was trying to achieve the human immortal realm. The young man had been pursuing her relentlessly. He was even willing to give up everything for her, yet she rejected him in the end. She said she would never fall in love with anyone for the rest of her life. The 9 Heavens immortal realm was full of mysteries. She did not need love to explore the place. The young man was extremely disappointed. Before they parted ways, he told her she would definitely meet someone whom she would never forget. She only smiled disdainfully. However, the young man's words had come true. When she first met Tang Mudu, she felt that this person was very interesting and couldn't help but want to tease him. In the end, she slowly discovered that this taciturn man was actually very passionate, so she kept getting closer to him, wanting to be with him all the time. Now, her heart was torn apart when she realized Tang Qingshan was going to leave her for good. She had been through a lot of dangers and setbacks, yet she had never experienced such pain. It was so painful that she was suffocating. Tang Mutu, wake up. Didn't you want to achieve the 9 Heavens Supreme Realm so you can reforge the saber in your hand? How could you fall asleep now? Zhao Li shook Tang Qingshan's body while tears were rolling down her cheeks. At this moment, her world turned from a dazzling and colorful world into a dark and gloomy one. However, she didn't notice that the flame of the copper lamp she obtained had become a bit stronger. When her tears fell onto Tang Qingshan's face, the black mist slowly dissipated. Tang Qingshan's expression returned to normal. His tightly shut eyes trembled slightly. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the secret arts that Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia executed were completely ineffective. The shocking demonic intent unleashed from Qin Nan's body continued to rise at a shocking pace, evolving continuously. Roar! At that instant, it was as if Qin Nan had turned into a terrifying beast. He let out a roar and charged at Mo Xie and Demon Emperor Wutian with great force. An incomparably huge pressure and a sense of crisis instantly rushed towards the two of them. The 2 cultivators tensed. They immediately took out the ancient Tao-seeking weapons they had prepared beforehand without any hesitation. However, the two Tao-seeking weapons were shattered into pieces in just a few moments. They scattered in all directions following a shocking explosion. Tathagata Great Buddha Seal. The two of them shouted and unleashed their ultimate killer move. Boom! Boom! The frightening Buddhist arts were torn apart in an instant. The incomparable power directly smashed into the bodies of the two people, causing their expressions to drastically change as they coughed out a mouthful of blood. The art of Tathagata, the art of path exchange. Mo Xie and Demon Emperor Wutian immediately performed hand seals without caring about anything else. Whoosh! It was as if the sky of the third forbidden area was torn open by a magnificent force. An invisible force descended from the sky and landed on the two cultivators. From the very beginning, they had already prepared a way to leave just in case. However, right at the moment when the two of them were about to be teleported away, a shocking scene occurred. Qin Nan let out a roar into the sky. A magnificent, illusionary demon flame burst into the sky like an erupting volcano. It forcibly shattered the force of the altar into pieces. How is this possible? Mo Xie and Demon Emperor Wutian were in disbelief. The altar that they had set up was nothing ordinary, and it was located quite a distance away. However, their astonishment did not last long as a giant hand reached out and grabbed their heads. It slammed them into the rift, resulting in a series of explosions. Crap! The two cultivators were startled. They immediately executed various Buddhist arts. Normally, they might be able to handle the situation, but they could not afford to use their demonic arts now. Bang bang bang! A series of explosions took place on Qin Nan's figure. The illusionary robe on his body gradually solidified. The immortal demonic intent grew clearer too. Mo Xie and Demon Emperor Wutian were startled. A powerful sense of oppression pressed down on their souls, causing the demonic Tao cultivation techniques they cultivated to stir, wanting to activate on their own. Both of them felt their hair stand on end at the same time. At this rate, not only were they going to be seriously injured by Qin Nan, their identities were going to be exposed too. Xiao Nanzi, don't do this, wake up at once. A sobbing voice entered Qin Nan's divine sense. Princess Miao Miao, who was fighting Tsang, burst into tears. Qin Nan! Husband! Even the eyes of the extraordinary master Xue Mengyao and the calm Jiang Bailan were filled with tears. Their faces were filled with panic too. Qin Nan's figure shuddered vigorously. His hand that was swinging at Mo Xie and Demon Emperor Wutian froze in the air. The demonic qi that was surging across the place came to a stop as if a heavenly river had poured down on it. In his mind that was filled with boundless fury, a clear voice rang out, causing his fury to gradually calm down and his reason to recover bit by bit. Phew! Zhou Xuandao and Kasyapa heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily, Qin Nan did not completely lose his mind. He managed to restrain himself in the nick of time. Qin Nan! At that instant, a voice suddenly appeared in Qin Nan's divine sense, causing his heart and soul to shudder violently, causing the black glow in his eyes to withdraw by half. Even though he had not heard the voice for a long time, he was still extremely familiar with it. It was the voice that had guided him since the beginning of his journey of martial arts. Here's our chance. Mo Xie and Demon Emperor Wutian quickly broke free from Qin Nan's grip. They immediately performed hand seals to control the force of the altar and vanished into thin air. The scene just then was too terrifying. The two immortals did not want to stay any longer. Senior brother? Qin Nan slowly turned around. His voice was hoarse and probing, as if he was afraid that the voice was just an illusion. Tang Qingshan's face turned pale as he leaned on Zhao Li Er's body. His breathing was extremely weak. However, the glow in his eyes was the same as before. Chapter 2273. Senior brother, Qin Nan subconsciously wanted to say something, but when he saw the life force in Tang Qingshan's body being drained away, it felt like his heart was being stabbed by a knife. The demonic intent that had been extinguished was ignited once again. His senior brothers might have recovered, but his life was about to come to an end. Tang Qingshan let out a sigh when he noticed the change in Qin Nan's condition. He felt relieved, but helpless too. Lear, I need to talk to him, Tang Qingshan said softly. Zhao Lear nodded. She had already stopped crying. However, her pair of jade-like hands hugged Tang Qingshan even tighter. Her joints had already turned white. Tang Qingshan patted the back of her hand and used all the power in his body to cast a spell with great difficulty. Whoosh! The surroundings began to change. The scenery, the masters of Tao, and the others had all disappeared. They were replaced by clear water and green mountains. Only Tang Qingshan and Qin Nan were here. It was an illusion. Now that I think about it, a long time has passed since the first day I met you. The past feels like a dream when I think about it. It doesn't feel real, Tang Qingshan said with a calm smile. He was not a talkative person, but his emotions were different when he was about to die. Senior brother, I'm sorry, Qin Nan said with a deep voice. He felt like he was about to cry. Nonsense. Why are you apologizing to me? Tang Qingshan snapped. Qin Nan, do you know what I wanted to do the most when I was devoured by Wuong Heaven Highness's will? I wanted to kill myself. Unfortunately, I didn't even have the ability to kill myself. Tang Qingshan looked ahead and calmed his tone. Qin Nan, sometimes things aren't what you think they are. You think that if you want to save me, you have to pay a huge price to save me. But what do I think? There's no need for that. You have to be clear that no matter how strong you are, I'm still your senior brother. As a senior brother, how could he become a burden to his junior brother? If you really pay a huge price to save me, then I will live in self-reproach from now on. Qin Nan was stunned. Tang Qingshan sighed and said, Of course, I know that you won't agree with my words. You will still save me in the end. However, you have to remember one thing. The things you carry on your back are not just the feelings between us brothers. You also have your Taoist companion, your family, your friends, your benefactors, and so on. Just do your best, and that will be enough. Also, no matter what the final result is, you can be angry, you can be crazy, but you can't lose your mind. Qin Nan was silent for a while. Right now, his heart was filled with all kinds of emotions, and he was speechless. A smile appeared on Tang Qingshan's face again. He said, If I ask you to not feel sad or angry for me, that is absolutely impossible. Senior brother, I don't want to persuade you. So, what you have to do next is to avenge your senior brother. Song, and those two bald donkeys, you have to make them pay the price, okay? Tang Qingshan stared into Qin Nan's eyes and asked word by word. In fact, in his heart, he didn't care about revenge at all. However, he needed Qin Nan to walk away from the shadow of his death, so as to divert his attention away from it. Senior brother, don't worry, I will definitely pay them back tenfold for what they did today. Qin Nan's eyes flashed with a cold light. That's good. If there is an afterlife, I hope I can still be your senior brother. Tang Qingshan nodded and patted Qin Nan's shoulder. The illusion dissipated. Qin Nan looked at Tang Qingshan's pale face not far away, and his life force was getting weaker and weaker. He still felt a sharp pain in his heart. This kind of emotion, no matter how great the reason was unavoidable. Lear. Tang Qingshan grabbed Zhao Li's hand. Tang Mutu, don't say goodbye. I won't let you die, I won't let you die. It was as if Zhao Li had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. All right, I won't say it. Tang Qingshan nodded his head firmly, before he forced a smile on his face and said, But thank you for being with me all this time. I hope we can meet again in our next life. After saying the last sentence, his eyes gradually lost their focus, as his life force was completely extinguished. Tang Mutu. Zhao Li completely lost her thoughts, as tears burst out from her eyes. Qin Nan, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, and the others clenched their fists tightly. The former, in particular, felt like their minds were being impacted by an invisible force. For them, it was as if the time between the heavens and earth had become extremely slow. All the battles, intents, treasures, etc. were temporarily removed from their bodies. Everything was heavy and sorrowful. At that instant, an unexpected change took place. The burning flame of the copper lamp in Zhao Li's hand suddenly turned pitch black, as a formidable force burst out from it and landed on Tang Qingshan. Is that? Song, Jia Yi, Zhou Xuandao, and the others immediately glanced at it. Qin Nan. Jia Ye's eyes flickered with astonishment as he said, "It seems like your senior brother is quite lucky. The thing that the woman has brought is the soul-reversing lamp. The lamp was refined by a Heaven Highness who was extremely knowledgeable about the soul in the ancient era. One of its functions is to gather the soul of a cultivator inside it. It will prevent the cultivator's soul from dissipating within 1,000 years. Besides, the lamp is so close to your senior brother, yet it was activated in time. I believe your senior brother's soul must have been absorbed by it. In the future, if we can find enough life force and a complete body, we can surely resurrect him." Hearing this, Qin Nan's mind shuddered violently. He had been trying to figure out a way to resurrect Tang Qingshan just a moment ago. Even though the situation was slightly worse than before, unlike Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan, whose souls were saved in time by Xiang Hun and the Tao of Death, there was still hope. However, he had never imagined that such a huge reversal would occur. Chapter 2274. The masked woman was none other than the successor of the celestial tree, Li Yangfan. With such an enormous amount of life force, as long as we find enough soul power in the future, we will be able to greatly reduce the time it takes to revive your senior brother. Zhou Xuandao said with a smile. What's going on? Did she just say that Tang Mutu isn't going to die yet? Qin Nan, is that true? Zhao Li's lifeless eyes lit up with a flame. She was like a drowning person grabbing onto a wooden plank. Qin Nan took a few deep breaths to withhold the joy in his heart. He nodded at her. Then, all of this was transmitted into her sea of consciousness. Tang Mutu. She hugged the icy body and the soul-reversing lamp tightly. More tears burst out from her eyes. However, she was no longer sad, but overjoyed instead. The masters of Tao nearby were dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on, but judging from Qin Nan and the others' attitude, it was very likely that Qin Nan's senior brother was still alive. Damn it! I should have been more ruthless if I knew this was going to happen. We should have destroyed his body, soul, and everything else. Demon Emperor Wutian, who had returned to hiding in the dark, could not help but curse when he saw this scene. We can only use Buddhism to destroy his soul. How are we supposed to do that? Besides, this woman who has only achieved the greater success stage of the Nine Heavens Supreme Realm has the soul-reversing lamp. Moxie said, "We've done enough this time. At least we've strengthened Qin Nan's demonic intent by more than 10 times. Furthermore, this also proves that our previous thoughts were completely correct." Demon Emperor Wutian's expression calmed down when he realized it was indeed the case. At the same time, on the other side, a smile appeared on Ancestor Mingchu's face. "From the looks of it, my presence here is a little unnecessary," Progenitor Mingchu murmured. He did not want to kill Tang Qingshan unless he had no other choice. "That's fine too. Allow me to personally witness your ascension to the ruler realm," the elder of Mingchu said and sat up cross-legged. His purpose on this trip was to protect Qin Nan and eliminate any potential dangers. This was also the second reason why he didn't go to the Blue Dome this time. Meanwhile, in the third forbidden area, Applause rang out one after another. Song's face was full of smiles as he praised, "Wonderful, truly wonderful! Who would have thought that after such an unforeseen event, there would still be a glimmer of hope? It seems that even the intangible laws of fate are standing on your side. Qin Nan, congratulations! You've successfully saved your senior brother." Many masters of Tao were astounded when they heard the words. Song had clearly suffered the greatest loss in the battle, yet he was still smiling as if he was not angry at all. "Seniors, please send her away. Ask the 9 Heavens Supremes of the undying Cycle Mountain to receive her," Qin Nan said to Li Ji and Mo Xiaoli. He secretly performed a few moves to strengthen Zhao Lier. "Yang Fan, thanks for your help." Qin Nan brought his fists together with a sincere look. "Don't worry about it, I'm just doing it along the way," Li Yangfan said calmly. She turned around and left. Qin Nan nodded. He did not say anything. Words were enough to express his thoughts. Qin Nan finally looked at Song. "You might be congratulating me, but I should apologize to you. After all, you've lost the reincarnation of the Pearl Spirit of Thoughtful Heavenly Highness. You even lost a great opportunity to blackmail me," Qin Nan said with a smile. His aura began to change. "It doesn't matter, his will was erased by you. It only proves that he's useless. It doesn't matter to me whether he's alive or not. Besides, I never thought of blackmailing you. Do you really think I'm that kind of person?" Song shrugged. He sounded disdainful. "If you don't care, let's not talk about it. I shall have a taste of the Heaven Monarch art that you invented." Qin Nan raised his saber and walked forward, one step at a time. A sacred glow and a magnificent demonic glow burst out of his body. The Tao pattern floated behind him. Each step left a mark on the ground. A few steps later, Qin Nan's aura shook the heavens and earth. The familiar pressure rose in the hearts of the masters of Tao. Whoosh! Qin Nan made his move. He merged with his saber, and turned into a peerless glow slashing at Song. The rules shattered and the rift became chaotic as it passed by. "Xiao Nanzi, let's help you teach this old monster a lesson." Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, and Xue Mengyao collected their thoughts. They activated the flowers of eternity and executed their saber art. "Follow Qin Nan and slay Song." The rest of the masters of Tao let out a roar. Their auras shook the heavens as they executed their attacks. The counterattack had begun. Song was already in a disadvantageous position. "Haha, Qin Nan, this isn't good. Are you seriously trying to bully me when there are so many of you?" Song laughed and didn't seem to mind at all. He simply waved his hand. Roar, roar, roar. Mountains, lands, and rivers far away in the third forbidden area cracked open as enormous beasts and other strange existences showed up and charged at the masters of Tao. Looking from afar, it was like a peerless torrent, incomparably shocking. They were all in the master realm. Furthermore, their eyes had all turned into strange symbols. Evidently, they were being completely controlled by some sort of mysterious power. "Princess, Bailan, Mengyao, don't worry about me. Go and deal with these things and achieve the ruler realm. Song, I'll handle them." Qin Nan transmitted his voice. "Got it." The 3 women were also decisive people. Without the slightest hesitation, their figures quickly changed and rushed in all directions. "That's right, that's more like it." Song nodded. Then, the smile on his face gradually disappeared. A peerless domineering aura that looked down on all living things in the world rose up from his body. He dashed forward and summoned the illusionary figure of the heavenly court to clash with Qin Nan. Bang bang bang! Chapter 2275. Crimson Emperor's Saber Intent. Qin Nan merged with the saber and turned into a fiery glow, shattering the overwhelming sword shadows in front of him into pieces. Following it, the impenetrable force, the art of the immortal demon, and the Tao pattern in his body swiftly merged into a formidable force. At that instant, Qin Nan sharply noticed that the force he had merged with was a little more obscure. It was no longer as smooth as before, and its strength was significantly weaker too. Could it be that the art of the immortal demon had a breakthrough after I lost my rationality, thus breaking the balance between the two forces? The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. Even though the impenetrable sacred flesh and the art of the immortal demon did not conflict with one another, they were both extremely outstanding. If one side became stronger, it was very likely that they would be able to suppress the other side. For example, if his invulnerable saint body had reached the level of eternal indestructible body, but he had only mastered the first part of the art of the immortal demon. If he had not mastered the second part, he would not be able to continue fusing them. Words of Buddha into the realms. It was as if Tsong's eyes were observing Qin Nan from top to bottom, as he immediately discovered Qin Nan's problem, causing him to switch his hand seal and reach out with his finger. As he sucked, countless Bodhi characters surged in Qin Nan's direction like a magnificent river. Qin Nan was startled. The force in his body shuddered, as if it had received a great blow. Art of Taiyin. Qin Nan swiftly moved and summoned countless illusions. Tune of the demon ascending to the heavens sword. Tsong followed closely behind. The ancient immortal sword in his hand turned blood red in an instant, releasing a monstrous demonic shadow. Demonic chants resounded in the void in all directions with an earth-shattering aura. Thud! The force in Qin Nan's body shuddered vigorously and broke into pieces. It transformed into the impenetrable sacred flesh, the art of the immortal demon, and the Tao pattern. The art of the immortal demon, in particular, was fully activated as if it had been provoked. If it had a spirit, it would have materialized and fought against the song of the demonic sword. Qin Nan's eyes sharpened. Tsong's intention was very obvious. What should I do? Several thoughts flashed across Qin Nan's mind. Qin Nan. Meanwhile, Zhou Xuandao's voice echoed in his divine sense. It seems like you have forgotten some of the most basic things. As the saying goes, using battle to nurture battle, it means to rely on battle, slaughter, and so on to become stronger. It's not a bad thing that you've stumbled into a strong opponent, but it's a good thing instead. Because in the midst of blood and fire, you can unleash your full potential and break through your limits. Why is Tsong fighting against you now? As a matter of fact, with Tsong's current cultivation, it's impossible for him to kill you with his strength. He can only suppress you at most. He's treating you as a whetstone to hone himself. You'll understand if you take a closer look at his back. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization. He quickly glanced at Tsong Xuandao. The Tao pattern of the 33 small immortal realms behind Tsong flickered as it unleashed a tremendous force. It was obvious that Tsong had fully activated the Heaven Monarch art. Senior, you're right, we're nurturing ourselves through battles. Qin Nan replied. He immediately halted the art of the immortal demon and the Tao pattern. He was only using the impenetrable sacred flesh. Jia Yi, activate the formation of Dian. Qin Nan transmitted his thought and directed the main force into the ownerless heaven pattern. Acknowledged. Jia Yi sat with his legs crossed and performed a hand seal. The ownerless heaven pattern in the air no longer suppressed the two ancient Tao-seeking weapons. It returned to Qin Nan's body. Countless runes spread across the pattern as a mystical Dian aura burst out of it and surged at Qin Nan. The formation of Dian was the strongest among the 9 formations. Zhou Di had invented it himself. It was specifically used to improve the impenetrable sacred flesh to the indestructible flesh of eternity. Even though Qin Nan could only use 3/10 of it, the aura of Dian was still very useful. Qin Nan's priority was to improve the impenetrable sacred flesh to the same level as the art of the immortal demon. You're pretty quick with your reaction, but it's going to weaken your strength significantly. I might even cripple you. It's not worth it, Tsong said with a smile. His voice was gentle like a gentle drizzle. Sung, stop wasting your time. Your words won't be able to sway me. Qin Nan took a step forward and threw a punch forward. A boundless sacred glow burst out of it. Sigh, I'm just trying to remind you, yet you're saying that to me. It's really upsetting. Sung let out a sigh. He reached out his hand and shoved it downward. A tremendous aura and a formidable presence of rules poured down at Qin Nan as if it were the judgment of the heavens. Qin Nan immediately felt a shocking pressure. His heart was alarmed as a great chill ran down his spine. However, he did not back off. He went forward and threw a punch forward instead. Bang bang bang! A terrifying gust surged in all directions. The qi and blood in Qin Nan's body became restless, as his bones began to emit a series of cracking sounds. A bloody taste could be felt in his mouth, but he forcefully swallowed it back down. Heart-slashing, Qin Nan gathered his strength and unleashed his will as he slashed at Tsang. As Tsang had mentioned, Qin Nan was at a complete disadvantage in the following clash. His sacred glow dimmed significantly. His body was covered in wounds too. He was soon covered in blood. Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Shui Mengyao, and the others were worried about him. However, they did not say anything after Qin Nan explained the situation to them. Even though they were worried, they clearly knew that when Qin Nan made the decision in such a situation, all they could do was to support him silently, to make the decision better for him. Bang bang bang! A series of terrifying explosions echoed in the third forbidden area. Some of them even spread outside the third forbidden area. The mysterious existences below the ruler realm in the nearby forbidden areas immediately backed away after feeling a great chill. Chapter 2276. Time trickled by. 15 days later. From afar, the entire third forbidden area was in a complete mess. The rift was in a state of chaos. The ground, mountains, rivers, etc. were all shattered, broken, and dried up. Even the new rules of heaven and earth, that had been tampered with by the supreme Haotian token, was somewhat broken. The Battle of the Masters this time was completely different from the previous Battle of the Masters, or even the previous Battle of the Masters in history. Last time, it was a battle between Empress Feiyue and the formidable factions. The rest of the Masters of Tao could only hide in another place and find ways to keep the battle a secret. The previous battles were similar to the current one. It was a battle between the Masters of Tao, but the resources, ancient Tao-seeking weapons, and opportunities to level up were not even 1/50th of what the Battle of the Masters of Tao had offered. As a result, a shocking scene took place in the Battle of the Masters. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. All of a sudden, two shocking gusts of wind appeared out of nowhere and swept across the entire area. Li Yongfan and an expert who had been stuck in the Peak Master realm for more than 1,000 years were emitting a ripple. It was the sign of someone breaking through to the ruler realm. In the previous Battle of the Masters, it was already shocking if 5 people managed to break through to the ruler realm. Normally, there would only be 3 or 4 people. However, the Battle of the Masters was only halfway through, yet 2 people had already broken through to the ruler realm. The great battle was still going on. Over the next 5 days, shocking gusts of wind and ripples kept surging in the third forbidden area. Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Shui Mengyao, Li Ji, and 3 other peak masters of Tao broke through their barriers and achieved the ruler realm. The continuous breakthroughs were like a heavy blow to the hearts of the peak masters of Tao. At the same time, not only did this grand battle not cool down, it instead became even more intense. The 3 women, Li Ji and Li Yongfan, were not in a rush to leave after they broke through to the ruler realm. They stayed outside the third forbidden area and watched the battle closely. In addition to them, the mysterious existences in the other forbidden areas were doing the same too. In this grand battle, the most eye-catching was still Qin Nan and Tsang. During these 20 days, Qin Nan had always been at a disadvantage. Moreover, there were dozens of times where he was surrounded by danger. If it wasn't for Qin Nan's timely reaction, he would have definitely been severely injured and collapsed to the ground. However, upon closer inspection, the impenetrable will released by Qin Nan was much stronger than before. The faintly discernible will of eternity had also become rather obvious. Previously, Qin Nan had suffered all kinds of injuries, which would have taken him thousands of breaths to recover on his own. Now, he only needed a few hundred breaths. Of course, Song's aura had also increased significantly. The pattern of the 33 small immortal realms on his back was no longer flickering. It was extremely brilliant and eye-catching. Most importantly, the heaven court that he had summoned previously had turned from an illusionary silhouette to a corporeal appearance. The ancients once said that the best opponents, even if on the surface there was a life and death grudge that could never be resolved, in the depths of their hearts, there would still be a trace of appreciation for each other. In other words, it was extremely important to have a good opponent. If you managed to invent an extraordinary Tao when everyone around you had yet to invent an extraordinary Tao, you would be regarded as one of the best in the world. You could easily become unbeatable in the same realm too. Unknowingly, the desire to forge ahead would be completely wiped out. Qin Nan, thanks. My heaven monarch art has improved to the next level in the past 20 days, Song said. The pattern of the 33 small immortal realms on his back began to vibrate vigorously. The glow that represented the 33 small immortal realms began to form patterns of different shape. If one were to take a closer look, they would be able to see the outlines of mountains, oceans, forests, deserts, etc. in the patterns that were smaller than the size of a palm. The outlines were exactly the same as the 33 small immortal realms. At that moment, Song's aura became even more majestic and shocking. Song has had a breakthrough? Many people's pupils constricted at the same time. Qin Nan, it seems like your luck isn't that great. Since I'm the one who had the breakthrough first, I won't let you treat me as a whetstone any longer. Don't blame me, Song said with a calm smile. However, before he could finish, Qin Nan interrupted him. You're wrong, I have to thank you too. The sacred glow engulfing Qin Nan's figure skyrocketed. It was blinding like the sun in ancient times. The indestructible will among the indestructible will grew 10 times stronger. In addition to that, a great storm took place in Qin Nan's divine sense, as the illusionary figure of a mysterious flower slowly appeared. It was closely connected to Qin Nan's impenetrable sacred flesh, as if they were one and the same. In other words, Qin Nan's impenetrable sacred flesh had finally reached the perfect stage. If he failed to refine the flower of eternity, he would never achieve the indestructible flesh of eternity. Song was startled. He soon burst out laughing. "Ha, that's more like it. Why don't we see who's stronger between us and who's going to achieve the ruler realm first?" Qin Nan's eyes flickered with demonic flames. "As you wish." The true art of the immortal demon and the Tao pattern in his body that had been dormant for a long time were activated. They merged with the impenetrable sacred flesh once again. Bang, bang, bang! A series of explosions took place in the air. The masters of Tao nearby were startled. They immediately looked at Song Nan. Qin Nan, whose aura had been suppressed all along, suddenly became the center of attention of the crowd. His presence was even more impressive than Song's. Whoosh! The heaven-shattering saber in Qin Nan's hand immediately flew out. A monstrous aura, a tremendous force, and a faintly discernible fluctuation were emitted from the tip of the saber, and it was capable of toppling mountains and overturning seas and destroying everything in its path. "Nice!" Song exclaimed. He summoned countless illusionary figures that turned into heavenly soldiers and generals. Chapter 2277. Time gradually passed. 2 days later. The battle between Qin Nan and Song Ji was still going on. Both of them were on par with one another. Every breath, shocking collisions would take place. Every place was filled with terrifying murderous intent. The impact of the collisions was strong enough to cover the area within a million li. A peak master of Tao had spent 3 days setting up a trap. He teleported 2 peak masters of Tao close to where Qin Nan and Song were fighting. The 2 peak masters of Tao were left with serious injuries before they could react. They were slammed into the ground in the distance. The battle between Qin Nan and Song was absolutely terrifying. None of the masters of Tao had the thought of ambushing them, while Qin Nan or Song was seriously injured to reap the benefits. Qin Nan and Song shuddered at the same time. They quickly withdrew their attacks and backed away a few 10,000 li. Following it, several rare phenomena appeared behind the two. Wisps of invisible ripples spread into the surroundings and soon expanded to cover a distance of 10 li. A strong gust of wind swept across the third forbidden area. It was producing a buzzing sound. The chaotic sky above immediately turned pitch black. A faint aura of calamity flowed out from the sky, causing many experts to shiver. Xiao Nanzi is about to achieve the ruler realm. Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Xue Mengyao, and the others were startled. Is he finally going to have a breakthrough? In the darkness, Ancestor Mingchu also sat up straight. What a pity, they are still struggling to decide the outcome of the battle. Many mysterious existences and the masters of Tao shook their heads in pity. Haha, Qin Nan, I'm having a great time with this battle. Unfortunately, he's about to have a breakthrough. We'll have to wait until he achieves the Heaven Highness realm so we can have a proper duel. Song laughed loudly. Although his long robe was tattered in many places and stained with blood, making him look rather miserable, his entire person was brimming with spirit. His eyes were resplendent, and he was imposing without being angry. Since you're so happy, why don't we each use a move at the last moment to end things? What do you think? Qin Nan's eyes burned with immortal flames as his battle intent surged. Oh? That's quite interesting. Please go ahead. The smile on Song's face faded a lot. Qin Nan took a deep breath. The heaven-shattering saber in his hand began to vibrate vigorously as a shocking saber intent burst out from it and soared into the sky. Even the magnificent force of calamity was affected by it. The new force in his body exploded, causing his surroundings to be dyed black and white. The coexistence of the sacred and demon. This move again? Song remained unmoved. Behind him, the ancient shadow of the heavenly court gradually rose up. Countless heavenly soldiers and generals were stationed there, and the sounds of battle shook the heavens. Sky stride blow. Qin Nan's eyes sharpened. His figure vanished into thin air and reappeared above Song, slashing at him with his saber. A 10,000 zhang long saber glow burst out, resulting in a spectacular scene. Everlasting change of all things, the heavenly court shall exist forever. Song let out a roar. The pattern of the 33 heavens, small immortal realms on his back expanded in all directions. The enormous heavenly court rose into the sky as the heavenly soldiers and generals executed a series of killing moves. Bang bang bang! The surroundings were filled with a series of explosions. From afar, the two terrifying forces continued to collide with one another, like light and darkness, water and fire. They were incompatible with one another, yet they were unable to destroy one another. Divine battle spirit merge into one. At that instant, Qin Nan groaned in his heart, as a magnificent figure appeared behind him and merged with his figure, making it impossible to distinguish between him and the figure. Qin Nan's battle intent skyrocketed to an unimaginable level. All along, Qin Nan had not summoned the divine battle spirit, as he had been waiting for this moment. Xiang Zun. Song was startled. He soon burst out laughing. Haha, even though Xiang Zun's talent was outstanding, he was only the strongest cultivator in the world in the end. So what if you have his soul? Song performed a hand seal. A loud voice came out of the heavenly court and echoed in the third forbidden area, as if it was giving the order from the heavenly court. This collision lasted for over 300 breaths of time before both of them were reduced to nothingness with a rumble. The strong impact struck Qin Nan and Song. The former was knocked 100 steps back, while the latter was knocked 1,000 steps back. Any cultivator could easily tell that Qin Nan had the upper hand in the battle. Phew! Qin Nan let out a relieved sigh and clenched his fist. Even though he had managed to suppress Song, one of the Supreme Highnesses, he was not overjoyed at all. The reason for that was because he had a very clear understanding of how terrifying Song was after fighting him for so long. Song had many tricks up his sleeves and the Heaven Highness arts he had learned. Song was only in the peak master realm. The Heaven Highness arts were greatly restricted when he executed them. However, once he achieved the ruler realm or even the Heaven Highness realm, he would be able to fully utilize the Heaven Highness arts. That alone was terrifying enough, not to mention Song's abundant experience. He was able to come up with a plan to deal with all kinds of unexpected situations. Besides, Song had yet to display the true strength of the Heaven Monarch arts. If Song were to gather all the other pearls of the Celestial Emperor, his combat strength would definitely soar by leaps and bounds. If he were to become the Lord of Origin again, that would be even more so. What is it? Are you feeling the pressure? Zhou Xuandao asked when he noticed something. A lot of pressure. Qin Nan nodded. He did not hide the truth. That's normal. The greater the pressure, the greater the motivation. You are only lacking in terms of foundation compared to him, so you must keep improving yourself and surpass the level of Zhou Di and Huang Fuju. Otherwise, you won't be able to defeat him. Zhou Xuandao said in a serious tone. Senior, I will keep it in mind. Qin Nan nodded. He sat down with his legs crossed after calming his thoughts. Chapter 2278. When the two of them had completely calmed down and were immersed in that mysterious feeling, the darkness in the chaotic sky began to spread in all directions at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 100 breaths of time, it had already reached 100,000 kilometers. Among them, purple, red, and blue lightning emerged one after another and rumbled continuously. The scene had surpassed the rare phenomena that would occur when a cultivator in the Master Realm achieved the Ruler Realm. Meanwhile, inside Qin Nan's body, that majestic main force was like boiling water, continuously bubbling and boiling. Apart from that, his consciousness entered a gray space. It was incomparably vast, with no end in sight. There was also no other light. When Qin Nan achieved the peak of the Master Realm, he felt like he had reached the peak of the Master Realm. Now that he was fighting Song Ji and witnessing such a magnificent scene, he was able to reach the bottleneck of the Master Realm. As such, Qin Nan was well aware of what he had to do to achieve the breakthrough. Following this, Qin Nan formed an illusionary figure with his will, which proceeded forward in the blurry space at a steady pace. This was because every inch of space contained pure laws and profundities. Time gradually passed. An hour had passed in the third forbidden area, but Qin Nan felt like he had been walking for 100 years. He did not have any other thoughts during this period. He only kept comprehending and comprehending. All of a sudden, the entire gray space shuddered violently as an illusionary door slowly appeared in the distance. The door was around 5 zhang tall. It was colorless and did not emit any aura, yet Qin Nan felt like the truth of the world was behind the door. Qin Nan's mind shuddered as he broke free from the mystical feeling. It was time for him to achieve the breakthrough. Break! The new force in Qin Nan's body was fully unleashed. It was as if his will had transformed into a peerless saber that slashed at the door across a great distance. All was silent. Not a sound could be heard. The power of his will surged forward continuously. Some time later, the gray door broke into pieces and turned into mystical energy before entering Qin Nan's mind. The doubts in his mind were cleared up. Everything had come to fruition. Whoosh! Qin Nan's eyes sprang open and emitted a blinding glow. The main force in his body was evolving too. At the same time, in the distance, Song's eyes opened. The aura emanating from his body also began to change. What a coincidence, we achieved a breakthrough together, and we're going to overcome the tribulation together too, Song said with a smile. However, an unexpected change took place as soon as he finished the sentence. The two of them looked up at the same time. It was as if there was an invisible suction force between the two, darkness engulfing the sky. They began to merge with one another at a rapid pace. A few moments later, the darkness overlapped with each other. Bang, bang, bang! At that instant, the three-colored lightning was fully unleashed from the darkness, which transformed into ancient formations, rare phenomena, murderous intents, etc., which surged toward the surroundings like an ocean. Why are the tribulations merging? The masters of Tao raised their heads in astonishment. Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Shui Mengyao, the rulers of Tao, and even Zhou Xuandao and Kasayapo were astounded. They had never seen anything like it, even though they were knowledgeable. Following it, an even more shocking sight took place. The formations, rare phenomena, and murderous intents seemed to be endless. They did not stop surging in all directions even after more than 10,000 of them were unleashed. Crap, they're coming this way. The masters of Tao were startled. They quickly abandoned the fight and used all kinds of methods to flee in another direction. The formations, rare phenomena, and murderous intents were extraordinarily powerful. They could not withstand more than a few of them. 100 breaths later, even some of the rulers couldn't help but gasp. The reason being that half of the sky and land of the third forbidden area were filled up by the formations and murderous intent. They were densely packed without any gaps, like a great calamity. Is he really trying to achieve the Master Realm? Many of the masters of Tao murmured with blank faces. They had already retreated to the other side. Interesting, I didn't expect our tribulations to merge. Fine, I shall achieve the ruler realm with you today. Song laughed. Then, his figure suddenly moved and shot straight up to the sky. We can't afford to waste any more time. Qin Nan swiftly made his move too. Bang, bang, bang! Dense explosions rang out one after another. The formations, traps, and forbidding auras that were terrifying in the eyes of the masters of Tao were completely useless in front of the two cultivators. They were destroyed and turned into light dots in the sky. Half an hour later, only 9 of the 10 strongest formations were left. They were rooted in the dark clouds. Slash! Qin Nan slashed at the formations and shattered them into pieces. With a sword in his hand, Song turned into a peerless sword rainbow and pierced through the air. The two of them practically destroyed 4 grand arrays at the same time, and then fought on the last grand array. Bang! The formation broke apart. The dark clouds quickly dissipated. The two floated in the air. Their divine sense buzzed at the same time. Immediately after that, earth-shaking changes took place in their bodies. The mystical main force inside Qin Nan's body had broken through some kind of restriction and transformed into a thick, crystalline substance. It was the power of rules. The highest level of power in the primary upper realm. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Qin Nan's and Song's auras skyrocketed. They had achieved the ruler realm in the blink of an eye, but it did not stop there. It continued to rise. To Song Nan, it was just another breakthrough to the ruler realm. It was nothing special. However, to Song Nan, the breakthrough to the ruler realm was not just about the improvement of his cultivation. Qin Nan, since you've achieved the ruler realm, I'll tell you how the Undying Cycle Mountain was born, how it's related to the origin force of the 9 heavens immortal realm, and what kind of power it has. Chapter 2279. Zhou Xuandao's voice exploded in Qin Nan's divine sense. His tone was stern like never before. Normally, Zhou Xuandao would not tell Qin Nan everything when Qin Nan achieved the ruler realm. Zhou Di only learned about it after he achieved the Heaven Highness realm. However, the times were different now, thus Zhou Xuandao had made an exception for Qin Nan. Senior, I understand, Qin Nan said sternly. When the heavens and earth were first established, this world did not have a primary upper realm or a secondary lower realm. It only had the purest origin force. When the origin force broke into pieces, it evolved into the 33 small immortal realms and various continents. As time gradually passed, the origin force slowly evolved. It evolved into the primary upper realm and the secondary lower realm. The undying cycle mountain was formed by a part of the purest origin force. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment after hearing Zhou Xuandao's words. He did not expect the undying cycle mountain to have such a shocking background. Didn't that mean the undying cycle mountain's level had surpassed the origin force of the 33 small immortal realms? You must be thinking that the undying cycle mountain is stronger than the origin force of the 33 small immortal realms, right? In terms of strength, the origin force of the 33 small immortal realms is stronger than the undying cycle mountain, but their quality is not as high as the undying cycle mountain. The relationship between the undying cycle mountain and the 33 small immortal realms is similar to the relationship between their ancestors and their descendant. If you can achieve the Supreme Highness realm and fully utilize the undying cycle mountain, you will be able to control a part of the origin force of the 33 small immortal realms for your own use. Zhou Xuandao paused for a moment before adding, when Zhou Di fought Tsang relied on the origin force, so Zhou Di had no chance of killing him. In the end, Zhou Di relied on the undying cycle mountain to burn all of his energy to defeat Tsang. Tsang wasn't sure about that, but I'm afraid he had a rough idea after the battle. Qin Nan's mind trembled continuously. As for now, you won't be able to use the origin force of the 33 small immortal realms. However, you can still use the undying cycle mountain to defend yourself against the attacks of the origin force. Furthermore, you are now able to barely activate the undying cycle mountain. You will be able to use it to suppress and defend against everything. Zhou Xuandao's tone became calm, as if it was not worth mentioning. One cut? Qin Nan's pupils shrank slightly. The word everything already had a great meaning. The fact alone was already extraordinary and unbelievable, let alone the fact that he was able to control the origin force of the 33 small immortal realms. This time, when you return to the undying cycle mountain, you will be able to see the 10th mountain pass. As for the significance of ascending to the 10th mountain, Zhou Xuandao hesitated for a moment before saying, I can't tell you the details yet. I can only tell you that it has a great connection with the Blue Dome. Qin Nan was stunned. Something to do with the Blue Dome? Didn't the Blue Dome come from another world? Why would it be related to something that was formed by the origin force of the heavens and earth? Qin Nan shook his head. He did not think too much about it. It was still too early for him to understand it with his current strength. Senior, thanks. I'll try my best to ascend to the 10th mountain pass. Qin Nan brought his fists together and said, Zhou Xuandao wore a smile. He did not say anything further. Following this, Qin Nan could feel a burning sensation on his forehead, as a mysterious symbol appeared on it. Qin Nan had a strange feeling too. Above the immortal realm, there was an indescribable mountain floating silently. No one was able to notice it. Qin Nan could easily absorb the energy of the undying cycle mountain to suppress and block everything with a single thought. Qin Nan had finally become the master of the undying cycle mountain. Master, since you've achieved the ruler realm, insert the power of rules into the ownerless heaven pattern so it can reveal its true appearance. Kasayapa's voice soon sounded again. Got it. Qin Nan unleashed the power of rules with a thought. Whoosh! Following a piercing sound, an ancient pattern with a length of 100 zhang and a width of 600 zhang slowly appeared behind Qin Nan. On the map was an ancient painting, on which ancient suns were falling one after another. Countless cracks appeared on the ground, and a stalwart figure was leading countless figures as they charged forward with determination. Bang bang bang! Following it, the ownerless heaven pattern shuddered vigorously. The 9 great formations inside began to operate at the same time. Furthermore, as if they had broken through some kind of shackle, the auras that erupted from them reached the heavens and shook the earth. It was as if 9 ancient giants had appeared, shining brilliantly between heaven and earth. It was extremely eye-catching. The ruler realm was able to activate 70% of the 9 formations. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. As expected of the artifact that Zhou Di had refined himself. Even the ancient Tao-seeking weapons and Heaven Highness artifacts had no chance of stopping him when he was using the ownerless heaven pattern. His strength would at least increase by 30%. Qin Nan soon withdrew the ownerless heaven pattern into his body. He glanced into the distance and saw Tsang's aura rising rapidly. He withdrew his thoughts. He unleashed the power of rules in his body once again. He activated the impenetrable sacred flesh, the art of the immortal demon, and the Tao pattern. All of a sudden, the 3 types of power began to tremble and undergo great changes. First was the Tao pattern. The 12 different colors on it gathered together and turned into a white color with the aura of the rules. That being said, the aura of rules was nothing special. The arts of Tao seeking had reached their limit after reaching the ruler realm. For example, if a person wanted to achieve the Heaven Highness realm, they would have to invent their own Tao of rules, such as Eternal Night Heaven Highness Eternal Night rules. However, the arts of Tao seeking they had learned were nowhere enough to invent their own Tao of rules. Following it was the art of the immortal demon. The realm of the immortal demon grew clearer in Qin Nan's heart. It felt like he could enter it with a single thought. On top of it, the rules of the immortal demon had completely merged with Qin Nan's body. Qin Nan was able to fully utilize its power. Most importantly, it was the nature of the demonic intent of the art. Chapter 2280. First, the illusionary outline of the flower of eternity had solidified significantly. Then, the impenetrable will had a hint of the rules of the impenetrable art. This was the secret of the 10 ancient fleshly bodies. As one's cultivation improved, the power of the 10 ancient fleshly bodies would evolve too. For example, when Zhou Di achieved the Heaven Highness realm, he had already mastered the rules of the impenetrable art based on the indestructible flesh of eternity. When he achieved the Supreme Highness realm, he had created the rules of the impenetrable art that did not exist in the heavens and earth. What kind of rules should I condense when I achieve the Heaven Highness realm? The thought popped up in Qin Nan's mind all of a sudden. He had merged the impenetrable sacred flesh, the art of the immortal demon, and the Tao pattern together. It was a brand new power, thus he would not be able to follow the path that Huang Fuju and Zhou Di had taken. Forget it, I still have a long way to go before I achieve the Heaven Highness realm. Qin Nan shook his head. He calmed his thoughts and sensed the changes in his body. However, something that Qin Nan did not expect took place. The 9 dragons' seal that had been lying dormant deep inside his soul suddenly emitted a brilliant glow. It was a lot brighter than before. Qin Nan, Jia Yi, and Zhou Xuandao were startled. Does that mean you can activate the 9 dragons' seal on your own after achieving the ruler realm? Zhou Xuandao blurted out. Activate it on my own? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Since he had obtained the 9 dragon seal, he had been forced into a passive position every time he used it. Sometimes, it would only appear when he was in danger. Other times, it would appear to help him without any warning. Whoosh! Following this, a 9-colored glow was fired from the 9 dragons' seal, which completely devoured Qin Nan's will. Before Qin Nan could react, his surroundings changed tremendously. A few moments later, he found himself in an unfamiliar space. The sky of the space was faintly golden, with countless stars floating in the air. The ground under Qin Nan's feet was covered in ice crystals, reflecting various kinds of light. What is this place? Is this the space that the Nine Dragons seal created on its own? Qin Nan wore a confused look as he tried to summon a giant saber with the force of his will. He slashed at the icy ground, but the ground did not budge despite the impact. Not even a single crack could be seen on it. With his current cultivation, he could easily kill a peak master of Tao with his will alone. This place is very special place of the Nine Dragons seal created on its own. Now that the Nine Dragons stone seal has guided me here, there must be a reason, Qin Nan murmured as he flew forward. The land of ice was fairly spacious, yet it was completely empty. Qin Nan felt like he had been flying for 20 hours before he finally saw mountains in the distance. They formed a huge mountain range that resembled an enormous dragon. The mountain range was also made of ice crystals. However, there were strange trees over a few hundred zhang tall on top of it, and all kinds of flowers and plants growing on them. These trees and plants are extraordinary too. Qin Nan tried to summon an ancient saber with his will after he reached the top of the mountain range. He slashed at the trees and plants, yet they did not budge. They were perfectly unharmed. Qin Nan began to wonder if he was really a ruler of Tao, yet he could not even hurt a tree. Qin Nan shook his head and went up the mountain. He did not find anything along the way. He only noticed something when he reached the top of a mountain and glanced into the distance. Not far away from him were two mountains clustered together, forming a mountain range with a circumference of a few 100,000 zhang. An ancient temple built with some kind of purple tree stood on top of it. It had 2 floors in total. It was similar to the treasure that Qin Nan had found in the orb of the Heaven Emperor with the 9 Dragons' seal's guidance. Qin Nan soon arrived at the entrance of the ancient temple. He pushed the door open and went inside. His heart skipped a beat as soon as he went inside. Even with his current cultivation, he could not help but take a deep breath and feel a chill down his spine. The first floor of the ancient temple was a small space with a circumference of over 100,000 li. On the ground of this small space there were numerous skeletons. Some were very complete, some were broken, some were light blue, and some were gold. They were densely packed together, like a sea of bones. How many cultivators were there to cover an area of over 100,000 li with skeletons? Most importantly, Qin Nan could sense a faint aura from every skeleton here, as well as a faint pressure. Qin Nan could not tell what cultivation realm these skeletons were at when they were alive. He did not know how long they had been here, or how much of their aura and pressure had been erased. However, he could sense, the skeletons here had all surpassed the ruler realm. What did that mean? In other words, all the skeletons here were at least heavenly venerables when they were alive. In the entire primary upper realm, even if all the skeletons of dead heavenly venerables were collected here, there would not be so many of them, right? From what I can see, the 9 Dragons seal came from the Blue Dome. It might be something from another world. Could it be that all the skeletons here are from another world? The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. If that was the case, how terrifying would the other world be? Meanwhile, an immature voice echoed from the void, "Humph, you've never seen the world before. It's just a pile of skeletons and you're already so scared." Sigh, I never thought I, Wu Di, would have a master like you. Qin Nan's heart shuddered. He had already heard from Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia that the 9 Dragons seal had once spoken. It proved that there was a weapon spirit inside the 9 Dragons seal. Qin Nan quickly asked, "Wu Di, are you the weapon spirit? What is this 9 Dragons seal for?" Chapter 2281. Qin Nan raised his eyebrows and said, "If I'm not mistaken, you were refined by a certain powerhouse with all his might. Or in other words, you're similar to the origin energy of another world. You were born in response to the world and have some sort of special mission, right? Wu Di curled his lips and said, Your guess is as good as not guessing. You youngsters nowadays only know how to play petty trick. Wu Di's tone was full of lament, but when paired with his childish voice, it sounded very awkward. Qin Nan decisively chose to ignore him and said, Why did you lead me here? Since Wu Di was unwilling to talk about the Nine Dragons seal, it was most likely because his cultivation was not high enough to know. Thus, there was no need to ask about it. As for the origin of the Nine Dragons seal, there was no need to ask about it. Wu Di said proudly, Originally, I didn't want to talk to you, but the situation is like this, and you're its master, so I'll make an exception. Now that you've become a ruler, your strength is comparable to a greater success ruler, or even a peak ruler. You can go to the Blue Dome. Remember to go to the Blue Dome and find more of these stones. As soon as he finished speaking, an image appeared in front of Qin Nan. In the image, there was an irregular stone about the size of a fist. It was covered in faint blue lines and 3 small golden symbols. It looked very mysterious. What is this stone? Do you need it to recover? Qin Nan asked. I need to recover? I told you to find it, so go and find it. What's with all this nonsense? Wu Di said unhappily. Qin Nan's lips twitched. Why did this Wu Di feel like an arrogant spoiled brat? That leads to the 2nd floor, right? Can I go up now? Qin Nan looked toward the end of the space. There, in the void, were 9 symbols connected together. You're only in the ruler realm. Your cultivation isn't high enough. I'll send you out of here right now. Oh, that's right. Can you not cause so much trouble? You're making this young master unable to sleep all day. Wu Di said indignantly. Everything around them began to distort. Before Qin Nan could say anything, everything disappeared. Qin Nan, what just happened? Can you activate the Nine Dragons seal now? Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia asked quickly. If Qin Nan could activate the Nine Dragon Stone seal, even if it was just a tiny bit, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Qin Nan tried to use his mind to activate the Nine Dragon Stone seal, but the latter did not respond. He shook his head and said, I can't activate it now. It just wants me to find this kind of stone. After saying those words, he took out the pattern again. I've never seen such a stone before. Me neither. Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia stared at him for a long time before shaking their heads. Back then, they had followed Zhou Di into the Blue Dome countless times. Only Zhou Di and Song were not there when they accidentally entered the depths of the Blue Dome. Little did they know, the mysterious stone might be deep inside the Blue Dome. If you're planning to enter the Blue Dome, you won't have to look for the stone. You're going to die if you go too deep into the Blue Dome with your current cultivation. That being said, it's a different story if the stone seal is willing to help you. Zhou Xuandao said after a slight ponder. Either way, it's a good thing that the stone seal is willing to communicate with you now that the weapon spirit is willing to communicate with you. Qin Nan nodded. He went back to trying to break through. Half an hour later, his aura finally stabilized. A faint aura of the ruler realm surged in all directions. The masters of Tao in the distance shivered in fear. Whoosh! A formidable force landed on Qin Nan and teleported him out of the 3rd forbidden area. Song was doing the same too. Qin Nan glanced at Song. Song was different from him. He had only achieved the basic success stage of the ruler realm. He was not strong enough to achieve the greater success stage of the ruler realm, but Song had achieved it. Qin Nan, congratulations, you can use the Undying Cycle Mountain now. Song brought his fists together and said, I'll have to hurry up and collect the Orbs of Heaven Emperor. Otherwise, I won't be able to defeat you. Qin Nan's expression remained the same as he said, You're being too modest with your words. If I'm not mistaken, it won't take you long to achieve the Peak Ruler Realm and achieve the Heaven Highness Realm, right? Song chuckled when he heard this. Don't think of me as a simple person. Even if Yi Zhaoxian and the others manage to establish a place to become a heavenly venerate, it will still take 2 years. 2 years was a long time for a ruler of Dao to achieve the Heaven Highness realm. However, many rulers of Dao had spent more than 10,000 years trying to achieve the Heaven Highness realm. Qin Nan, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Xue Mengyao, and the others flew over from afar. Their eyes were filled with surprise and a hint of murderous intent. Young friend Qin, congratulations on achieving the ruler realm. Mingchu's progenitor no longer concealed himself. He walked over from afar and brought his fists together. He locked his gaze on Song from the corner of his eye. Mingchu's progenitor? Aren't you? Qin Nan was shocked. Young friend Qin, I won't lie to you. My true self stayed here because I wanted to kill Tang Qingshan if you failed. Secondly, I wanted to protect you, just in case. Mingchu's progenitor said. Thank you, progenitor. Qin Nan fell silent for a moment, but he still brought his fists together in the end. From Ancestor Mingchu's point of view, he could also understand. I'm glad you don't blame me. Mingchu's progenitor laughed bitterly. Qin Nan, have a good chat with your friends. I won't be accompanying you. Farewell. Song smiled faintly, then turned and flew away. Young friend Nanzi, should we? Princess Miao Miao was eager to try. However, before she could finish, 2 ripples appeared not far away from Song. 2 old peak rulers of Dao stepped out from the ripples. They glanced at Qin Nan and the others coldly before following behind Song. No need. Song has already made preparations. We can't kill him now. Qin Nan shook his head. Fine. Then where are we going now? Now that we're rulers, can we go to the Blue Dome? Princess Miao Miao asked, her eyes filled with curiosity. She really wanted to know what the Blue Dome was like. Chapter 2282. The person who transmitted the message was the Heaven Illusionary Ancestor Sex Patriarch Shuangdao. Qin Nan, just a moment ago, Empress Feiyue's aura changed tremendously after she obtained an ancient book. Cultivators Qingyu, Ling Huang, and I went to ask her about it, but she suddenly attacked us. She injured us and left on her own. Following it, ruler Qingyu and progenitor Ling Huang transmitted their thoughts. Their words were almost the same as the Heaven Illusionary Ancestor Shuangdao. What's going on? Did Song set up a trap to let his daughters will take over the copper mirrors? Qin Nan's mind was in a mess. It was the last thing he wanted to see. Did that mean he was going to fight Empress Feiyue in the future? Calm down first. Qin Nan took a deep breath to calm his thoughts. Wait, something doesn't feel right. If the copper mirror's will was taken over by Tsang's daughter, wouldn't the copper mirror kill progenitor Ling Huang and the others instead? If progenitor Ling Huang and the others are all dead, our strength is going to drop significantly. It's going to be a lot easier for Tsang to deal with me. Several thoughts flashed across Qin Nan's mind. That being said, it was only one of the suspicious points. It did not necessarily prove anything. Qin Nan, what's going on? Progenitor Mingchu and the others immediately looked at Qin Nan. They were aware that Qin Nan's emotions had fluctuated greatly. Empress Feiyue's aura suddenly changed. She attacked progenitor Shuangdao and the others. Qin Nan said with a hint of bitterness. What? Progenitor Mingchu, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Xue Mengyao, Zhou Xuandao, and Cassiopeia were startled. Tell us the details. Zhou Xuandao was the first to react. He wore a stern look. Qin Nan transmitted the message from the 3 progenitors to them. Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia frowned. Suddenly, a red string appeared on Qin Nan's wrist. Ancient characters floated out of it and formed a strange symbol in front of Qin Nan. Red string of 3 lives? Qin Nan was stunned. Qin Nan, this symbol is an ancient secret technique. When 2 people execute the technique at the same time, The will of the one executing the technique will enter the other's divine sense through a medium and materialize for a period of 1,000 breath. Later on, after the use of tokens to transmit voice became widespread, very few people used this secret technique anymore. Kasyapa first explained on behalf of Qin Nan, then quickly said, "I'll teach you this secret art." Thousands upon thousands of scriptures rushed into Qin Nan's mind. The copper mirror is looking for me? Qin Nan collected his thoughts. He quickly calmed his thoughts and began to comprehend the scriptures. The ancient secret art was not complicated. With Qin Nan's current martial talent, it only took him less than 10 breaths to fully comprehend it. Qin Nan's hands immediately performed a series of hand seals. Buzz. The symbol floating in front of him broke into pieces and turned into rays of light entering Qin Nan's divine sense, which gradually turned into a figure. Although the figure was the same as before, with attractive facial features and a peerless appearance, giving him the feeling of an ice sculpture that kept him at arm's length, Qin Nan could not help but feel a sense of unfamiliarity in his heart. "May I ask if you are Empress Feiyue, Ortsang's daughter, Ji Jinzi?" Kasyapa asked. He and Zhou Xuandao could see the divine sense too. "Greetings, Senior Kasyapa and Senior Zhou Xuandao. I used to hear my father's men talking about you and Zhou Di." Empress Feiyue bowed. Her tone was no longer as cold as before. "You've completely occupied the Empress will?" Qin Nan said coldly. His divine sense was brimming with murderous intent. "Not yet, Sister Feiyue is a genius. She actually invented the art of 3 lifetimes and perfected it to the level of 10 lifetimes. I was only a heaven immortal in the past. How could I possibly occupy her will?" Empress Feiyue shook her head. "It's just that my memories in the past have subconsciously influenced Sister Feiyue. Something else happened too, so Sister Feiyue has temporarily become me." Qin Nan was startled. He asked, "What happened?" Empress Feiyue lowered her gaze and said, "Sister Feiyue found a precious artifact in the Blue Dome. It's called the Soul Gathering Book. It contains my mother's fragmented soul." Zhou Xuandao asked, "Is it Fairy Qiangyue?" Empress Feiyue withdrew her thoughts and nodded. "My mother's Taoist name is Fairy Qiangyue." Kasyapa said in confusion, "If I'm not mistaken, Fairy Qiangyue should have died in the battle. Why would her fragmented soul appear in the Soul Gathering Book?" Empress Feiyue shook her head and said, "I'm not sure either, but the Soul Gathering Book does contain my mother's fragmented soul. Besides, the Soul Gathering Book is incomplete. I've only got half of it. There's still the other half. My mother's soul must be in the other half of the Soul Gathering Book." Zhou Xuandao said, "So, you're thinking of..." Empress Feiyue lowered her voice and said, "Yes, Senior, through Sister Feiyue's memories, I know Qin Nan has found a precious artifact called the 9 Dragons Seal. It came from the Blue Dome. My father and 3 other Supreme Highnesses were after it. The other half of the Soul Gathering Book is close to the Blue Dome. With Sister Feiyue's current cultivation, she will surely die if she goes there. Therefore, I'm hoping that Qin Nan can use the 9 Dragons Seal to bring me there." Qin Nan was startled. He did not expect it to turn out like this. Empress Feiyue let out a sigh and said, "Qin Nan, Seniors, I know you don't believe me, but I'm willing to swear an oath to prove that I'm telling the truth. Besides, my father is no longer my father in my eyes. If it wasn't for him, my mother wouldn't have died in the past. Therefore, I won't side with my father. I just want my mother to be free so she can be reincarnated. As long as it's possible, I won't ask for anything else. I won't take over Sister Feiyue's will anymore. I'll destroy myself and return to the void so that I can reunite with my mother in her next life. Is that okay?" Her voice was pleading. Chapter 2283. This matter is not ordinary, so we cannot give you an answer for now. Why don't you swear a heart demon oath and a soul oath in the name of Ji Jinzi first? Zhou Xuandao was the first to speak. Sure. Empress Feiyue did not hesitate. Her figure dissipated after swearing the two O's. Qin Nan, what do you think? Zhou Xuandao asked. If it's possible, I'll pay a visit to the Blue Dome, Qin Nan said sternly after collecting his thoughts. Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia smiled upon hearing the words. What do you mean, if it's possible? You're definitely going. That being said, Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia did not object to it. They were initially worried that Song would make Empress Feiyue lose her will and turn her into an enemy of Qin Nan. However, it turned out that they were no longer worried. Besides, Qin Nan had to pay a visit to the Blue Dome too. Judging from Ji Jinzi's words, she was only temporarily occupying Empress Feiyue's will. It was likely that Empress Feiyue's will would awaken after some time and regain control of the body. If Qin Nan were to use the heart-slashing saber, he might be able to erase Ji Jinzi's will completely. However, he could not afford to do that. Ji Jinzi was currently in control of Empress Feiyue's body. It did not matter if Qin Nan agreed or not, Ji Jinzi would still head to the other half of the Soul Gathering book. As Ji Jinzi had mentioned, Empress Feiyue was surely going to die with the current strength of her flesh. As a matter of fact, anyone in the Nine Heavens immortal realm, including Tsang, Yi Zhaoxian, and Eternal Night Heaven Highness would surely die if they set foot in the Blue Dome. Their only hope was the Nine Dragons seal. On top of that, it was best to let Ji Jinzi's will dissipate on its own. It would minimize the impact on Empress Feiyue. Of course, as old monsters who had survived from the ancient era until now, even though the two of them believed that what Ji Jinzi said was all true, they still had some doubts in their hearts. However, on second thought, Song had only achieved the ruler realm not long ago. There was only one Heaven Highness in the world. It was unlikely that he would be able to use the Blue Dome to plot something. Besides, with the Nine Dragons seal protecting him, there was no need to worry. What a surprise! Fairy Qiong-yu's soul is still being detained. Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Back then, before Zhou Di had become a celestial venerate, he had interacted with Fairy Qiong-yu quite a bit. Furthermore, there were several times when the two of them encountered each other and joined forces to fight against their enemies. At that time, Zhou Di had a rather good impression of Fairy Qiong-yu. The latter Qiong-yu too, of course. However, before it could turn into true love, Fairy Qiong-yu was forced to marry Tsang by her clan. Zhou Di was going to stop it, but Fairy Qiong-yu stopped him. It was going to be a great story, but fate nipped it in the bud in the end. Now that he looked back, everything was still the same, but the people had changed. Wu Di, I believe you've heard what I said. I believe it won't be a problem for you to bring me to the deeper part of the Blue Dome? Didn't you want that kind of crystal? You can go and get it. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to the Nine Dragons seal. Whether he could go or not, this guy's attitude was very important. What do you mean it won't be a problem? Of course it won't be a problem. Who do you think I am? What kind of existence is the Nine Dragons seal? I can guarantee your safety even if you go to the deeper part of the Blue Dome, let alone the deeper part of the Blue Dome. Don't bother me with trivial matters like this in the future. A young, proud voice came from inside the seal. Thank you. Qin Nan let out a sigh of relief and opened his eyes. Qin Nan, what happened? Mingqiu and the others asked. It's like this. Qin Nan explained everything that had happened to him. Phew, that's great, that's great. Princess Miao Miao and the others let out relieved sighs. So are you planning to go to the Blue Dome now? Ancestor Mingqiu frowned and asked. Qin Nan said after a slight ponder, Senior, I won't lie to you. I have an artifact in my body that can guarantee my safety when I go to the deeper part of the Blue Dome. Mingqiu's figure shuddered. He said with a wry smile after a while, as expected of the reincarnation of two Supreme Highnesses. I didn't expect you to have such an artifact. If that's the case, I have no other opinions. Also, let me take you to the Blue Dome. Princess Meow Meow said, I want to go too, I want to go too. Qin Nan rejected without hesitation. No way, you have just achieved the ruler realm. It's too dangerous for you to enter the blue sky realm now. I can't be sure how many people my artifact can protect. Princess Meow Meow pouted. She was about to refute when Jiang Bailan said with a chuckle, Princess, Qin Nan is right. It's not good for us to go now. We might as well return to the Undying Cycle Mountain and improve our cultivation. When the time comes, Qin Nan won't be able to refuse us. Princess Meow Meow's eyes flickered. When she recalled Qin Nan's insane speed of improvement, she decided to focus on improving her cultivation as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would leave her in the dust. Besides, if they went to the Blue Dome and became Qin Nan's burden, how was she going to face him? Alright, but you have to bring Sister Feiyue back in one piece. Princess Meow Meow said. That won't be a problem. Qin Nan sent the women back to the Undying Cycle Mountain after a brief conversation. He then followed Mingqiu to the Blue Dome. Meanwhile, he also transmitted a message through the red string of 3 lifetimes. Empress Feiyue, no, more precisely, Ji Jinzi's voice was filled with joy. Qin Nan, it'll take us some time to reach the Blue Dome. Why don't you activate the Taiyin formation and train yourself constantly, so you can refine the Flower of Eternity as soon as possible? Once you've improved the art of the Immortal Demon, you can try to achieve the Flesh of Eternity and the art of the Immortal Demon too. Jia Yi said. Chapter 2284. A day later, Qin Nan and the old man arrived at the easternmost part of the first immortal realm. It took them a few hours to break a gap in the barrier. They entered the boundless, pitch-black void. Another 8 hours later, Qin Nan finally saw the entrance to the Blue Dome for the first time. It was the Crimson Arch that stood at the end of the endless darkness. The entrance alone has such a terrifying aura, Qin Nan exclaimed in his heart. Any peak master of Tao would not be able to get close to it. Buzz. The 9 dragons' seal in his soul emitted a faint glow as if it was overjoyed. Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. He entered the arch with ancestor Mingqiu. 100 breaths later, Qin Nan felt his body loosening as he found himself in an unfamiliar world. Almost in an instant, a chill exploded in his heart. His body subconsciously tensed up. The power in his body began to circulate on its own, accumulating power and waiting to be unleashed. He clearly sensed that there was no immortal intent or qi around him, but thousands of unfamiliar auras. Even the rules that were everywhere in the 9 heavens immortal realm were nowhere to be seen here. In addition to it, Qin Nan also sensed terrifying beasts staring at him coldly. Qin Nan opened his eyes and was startled. Everything was extremely bright. The vast sky was blue, and the ground under his feet was a normal yellow color. In the distance there were towering mountains, and all kinds of strange flowers, grass, rivers, plains, etc., all of which were full of vitality. Did you not expect this? I had the same thought when I first came to the Blue Dome. I thought everything here was different from the 9 heavens immortal realm. Ancestor Mingqiu said with a smile. You're right. Qin Nan collected his thoughts. He tried to unleash the power of rules in his body. He discovered that the power of rules was greatly suppressed. He could only unleash less than half of its power. However, this place isn't as peaceful as it seems. There are all kinds of traps, forbidding auras, and ferocious beasts. It's extremely dangerous. You might even lose your life if you're not careful enough. For example, that rock over there is strong enough to kill a peak master of Tao. Ancestor Mingqiu pointed in a direction. Qin Nan activated the immortal eyes of the divine god of battle and saw a black rock around the size of a fist with a strong golden flame inside it. If it was triggered, it would burst out unstoppably. Qin Nan, since the ancient times, the Blue Dome has been split into 3 different areas, namely the Upper Arcana Realm, the Middle Arcana Realm, and the Lower Arcana. We have no idea how big the Upper Arcana is or what it contains. We are currently at the outermost area of the Lower Arcana Realm. In more detail, the Lower Arcana Realm and the Middle Arcana Realm are further divided into the outermost area, the outer area, the middle area, and the inner area. A peak ruler realm would need around 10 days to reach the inner area from the outermost area of the Lower Arcana Realm. It would take around 20 days to reach the inner area from the outermost area of the Middle Arcana Realm. Besides, that's without encountering any traps, forbidding auras, or ferocious beasts. Next. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment upon hearing the words. He did not expect the Blue Dome to be so huge. It would only take a peak ruler realm around 7 days to travel from the easternmost area of the First Immortal Realm to the easternmost area of the First Immortal Realm. Ancestor Minchu said sternly, Qin Nan, with my cultivation, there's a great risk of dying in the middle area of the Lower Arcana Realm. Without at least 5 peak rulers teaming up, it's impossible to reach the outermost area of the Middle Arcana Realm. I know your precious artifact is extraordinary, but you should still be careful. If anything goes wrong, you must leave at once. After all, according to the ancient records, the current Blue Dome is even scarier than the Blue Dome of the ancient era. Before he could finish, the 9 dragons' seal shuddered and emitted a 7-colored glow that landed on Qin Nan's figure. The chill in Qin Nan's heart immediately dissipated. The feeling of being stared at was gone too. It was obvious that Wu Di was expressing his dissatisfaction. This old man had no idea how powerful it was. Senior, I'll keep that in mind. Qin Nan nodded sternly. I'll try it first. Qin Nan landed beside the rock containing the golden flames. The rock did not react at all. Qin Nan reached out his hand to grab it, but the rock remained the same, as if it did not see Qin Nan at all. Qin Nan's eyes glittered. If that was the case, he would be able to ignore the traps and forbidding auras. Seal, can I share the glow with the others? Qin Nan immediately transmitted his voice. Don't worry, I'll protect your Dao companion when the time comes. Wu Di twisted his lips. Thanks. Qin Nan nodded. Even though Minchu progenitor saw how magical the glow was, he was still a little worried. He continued to lead Qin Nan forward. A few days later, they arrived at the center of the Lower Arcana Heaven. They tried a few forbidding auras, but they were still unharmed. Qin Nan initially wanted to bring him along to meet up with progenitor Ling Huang and the others, but progenitor Minchu shook his head and told him that they had to work together at the beginning of the expedition. They would have to wait until the end of the expedition. Following this, Qin Nan proceeded forward on his own. The deeper they went, the more traps and forbidding auras they encountered. Each of them contained a shocking energy that would shake the heavens and earth once they were unleashed. In addition to that, Qin Nan also encountered a lot of beasts he had never seen or heard of before. There were also all kinds of strange existences that had appeared due to various reasons. Their cultivation was at least at the greater success stage of the ruler realm, and most of them were at the peak of the ruler realm. Of course, just like the traps, they did not seem to notice Qin Nan. Even when Qin Nan walked past them, they did not notice anything out of the ordinary. If other rulers could do the same, they would be overjoyed, as the Lower Arcana Heaven had countless heaven-defying fortunate encounters and mysterious treasures. Once they obtained them, they would benefit immensely. Qin Nan also understood this, but he was in a hurry, so he could only give up and come back next time. Crossing this river should be the Middle Arcana Heaven, right? On the 11th day, Qin Nan came to a stop. A faint silver river appeared in front of him. It was like a chasm that separated the heavens and earth, separating the blue sky continent. Chapter 2285. The Mountain of Origin? Qin Nan's eyes flickered curiously. He stepped on the river and approached it. Several enormous creatures were swimming forward around Tenjiang under his feet. Their auras were as deep as an abyss. That's right, the Mountain of Origin is the place to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. It's located deep inside the Middle Profound realm. Zhou Xuandao said calmly. A place to achieve the Supreme Highness realm? There's such a place in the Blue Dome? Qin Nan was startled. My master, you might not know this, but the Mountain of Origin wasn't formed by the Blue Dome, Cassiopeia said. In the ancient era, there was only one Heaven Highness battlefield in the Nine Heavens immortal realm. Anyone who had reached the Master Realm could enter it to achieve the Ruler Realm and achieve the Supreme Highness realm. However, that was all. Many Heaven Highnesses teamed up to break through the barrier and discovered the Blue Dome in order to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. After searching for a long time, Song and the rest of the Heaven Highnesses, a total of 99 Heaven Highnesses, went deep into the Middle Profound realm and refined 6 kinds of godly objects from the Blue Dome. They established all kinds of rules and attracted many Heaven Highness realm beasts to construct the Mountain of Origin. The Mountain of Origin is extremely mysterious. It contains lots of rules, primary force, etc. You can achieve the Supreme Highness realm at the top of the Mountain of Origin. Qin Nan took a deep breath. Through these words, he could imagine how magnificent that scene would be. Is the Mountain of Origin still around? Qin Nan asked. If it was no longer around, there was no place to achieve the Supreme Highness realm in the Nine Heavens immortal realm. Even if they were to build another Mountain of Origin, it would take a very long time to gather 99 Heaven Highnesses. It's definitely still around. The rules were set when the Mountain of Origin was constructed. If anyone wants to achieve the Supreme Highness realm, they will need 33 human Heaven Highnesses to open the seal and summon the Mountain of Origin. Otherwise, the Mountain of Origin will go into seclusion. After all, there are too many terrifying things in the Blue Dome. We can't let them destroy it so easily, Cassiopeia said. Qin Nan, Song and Yi Zhaoxian will definitely try their best to open the Mountain of Origin as soon as possible and become Supreme Celestial Lords again. That's why, in the past few decades or centuries, they've been using all sorts of methods to help the sovereigns break through to the Empyrean realm. When the time comes, you can also borrow their strength to reach the Empyrean realm. Zhou Xuandao exhorted. Yes. Qin Nan engraved it in his heart. In just a short while, he had arrived at the Middle Profound realm. Compared to the lower Arcana realm, the presence of various unfamiliar auras was 10 times stronger. The deadly traps, forbidding auras, etc. had increased significantly too, and were more well hidden too. Even with the immortal eyes of the divine god of battle, Qin Nan could only see some of them. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to Empress Feiyue. He proceeded forward after confirming the general direction. Qin Nan came to a stop all of a sudden. His eyes flickered with a confused look. Why did his divine battle spirit seem to have moved a little just then? Without any hesitation, Qin Nan summoned the divine battle spirit. The divine battle spirit emitted a faint purple glow. Its imperious aura was 10 times stronger than usual. Furthermore, as if the divine battle spirit had received some sort of summon, it actually slightly turned its head and looked in another direction, no longer looking straight ahead. It must be the immortal godly boulder that triggered Xiang Zun's reaction. After all, Xiang Zun is its successor. Zhou Xuandao said. Qin Nan nodded and withdrew the divine battle spirit. However, Qin Nan, Zhou Xuandao, and Cassiopeia did not notice a purple-golden flicker flickering in the divine battle spirit's hollow eyes. Wu Di, who was deep inside the 9 dragons' seal, raised his eyebrows as if he sensed something. However, he did not mind it and continued with his business. Time gradually passed. Another 10 days were gone fairly quickly. Qin Nan had arrived at the center of the mountain range. That's the mountain, right? Qin Nan raised his head and glanced into the distance. He transmitted his thought to a snowy mountain. A moment later, a godly ray flew out from the mountain and landed in front of him. Its long robe drifted in the wind, resulting in a magnificent appearance. Although there was no expression on her exquisite face, her pale blue eyes were filled with pleasant surprise. Qin Nan, you're here. She reached out her hand and tried to hug Qin Nan. Qin Nan's figure stiffened. Ji Jinzi sharply noticed the change in him. Her eyes flickered slightly as she withdrew her hand in time and said, I'm sorry, I've experienced what Sister Feiyue went through, so I felt a sense of familiarity with you. I subconsciously wanted to hug you. Hearing the words that he would never have heard before, looking at the extremely familiar face, and sensing the strange yet familiar aura, Qin Nan could not help but feel a little awkward. It's fine, I'm just not used to it. Qin Nan rubbed his nose. So, does that mean I can hug you? Ji Jinzi blinked her eyes. Ugh, well, Qin Nan was left speechless. He quickly switched the topic. Is the other half of the soul-gathering book far away from us? Ji Jinzi was amused. She could not believe it when she was experiencing Sister Feiyue's memories. She did not expect a ruler realm cultivator to be so dull when it came to interacting with women. It was indeed the case now. That was quite interesting too. Ji Jinzi shook her head and calmed her thoughts. She took out an ancient book. Qin Nan took a glimpse at it. The ancient book was no different from an ordinary book, except that half of it was missing, and its surface was encapsulated by a pitch-black aura. Furthermore, even with his eye technique, he was unable to peek through it. He could only sense a tremendous spirit force. The other half of the soul-gathering book is deeper inside. It will take us 8 days to reach it, Ji Jinzi said. Sure. Qin Nan nodded. He immediately transmitted his voice to the 9 Dragons seal. Wu Di did not respond. He fired a 7-colored ray onto Ji Jinzi. Such a magical ray, is it enough? Ji Jinzi's eyes flickered with curiosity. She observed the ray carefully. It doesn't matter if it's passing by the forbidding auras or the beasts. They won't notice it. Chapter 2286. 4 days later, Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi arrived at the middle of the valley. The speed at which they were advancing had slowed down quite a bit. They realized that the effect of the 7-colored light was significantly weakened. When they passed by some of the forbidding auras would leak out. When they passed by some of the ferocious beasts and mysterious existences, the forbidding auras would awaken and scan their surroundings in confusion. Even though it was only a close call, the two did not dare to lower their guard. One had to know that the auras released by the restrictions they had encountered earlier had far surpassed the auras of sovereigns. Most likely, they were on par with Heavenly Exalt. If anything went wrong, the consequences would be unimaginable. On top of that, Qin Nan also noticed that Ji Jinzi's personality was the complete opposite of Empress Feiyue's. The former was a chatterbox. She would not stop talking along the way, and asked Qin Nan about everything that had happened since he was young. However, Qin Nan did not feel disgusted by her presence, perhaps because it was Empress Feiyue's body. He had started talking without realizing it. On top of that, Qin Nan noticed that Ji Jinzi's talent in martial arts was extraordinary. Qin Nan was impressed by her understanding of various arts. Unknowingly, the relationship between the two of them was slowly warming up. A few hours later, the two entered an ancient mountain range. The surroundings were filled with towering trees and strange flowers. The cries of ferocious beasts echoed in the air. There were all kinds of traps and forbidding auras hidden in the surroundings, causing every step to be filled with danger. All of a sudden, both of their eyes turned cold. I remember this place. We've just passed by this place. Why are we back at the same spot? Did we trigger some kind of forbidding aura? Ji Jinzi said. That's possible. Come behind me. Qin Nan said softly and walked forward. Ji Jinzi's lips curled upward. Wasn't her cultivation the stronger one between the two of them? Why was he asking her to follow behind him? She did not point it out. She obediently followed his instructions. The two continued for a while and soon returned to the same spot. It seems that we have entered some kind of illusion, Qin Nan said. If it were other killing intent and restrictions, the two of them would have been drowned out long ago. Break. Qin Nan had practiced the illusionary immortal scripture before, so he was quite familiar with illusions. He immediately slapped downward, unleashing a tremendous force. Boom! Following a shocking blast, the ground within 10,000 li around them shattered into pieces, turning into a pitch-black, bottomless abyss. Moreover, a majestic suction force surged out from within. It was like two invisible hands that grabbed Qin Nan and Yi Qintang and pulled them downward. A tug. Not good. Qin Nan's expression changed. This suction force was quite vast, far surpassing his current level. Qin Nan did not have time to think. He immediately unleashed the new force in his body to encapsulate himself. He unleashed the ownerless heaven pattern to wrap around Ji Jinzi. Whoosh! Their figures sank at a shocking pace. It felt like they had sunk over 10,000 li in the blink of an eye. They slammed heavily into the ground, resulting in two tremendous explosions. The blood in Qin Nan's body became restless, as the force of the collision had given him a great impact. Are you all right? Qin Nan asked. I'm fine. Ji Jinzi shook her head. Her eyes glittered in the darkness. Qin Nan immediately executed the immortal eyes of the divine god of battle to scan his surroundings. The darkness was nothing ordinary. Even with his eye technique, he could only see 100 zhang away. Roar, roar, roar. Suddenly, a series of roars exploded in the distance, as blinding crimson rays appeared in front of them and rapidly approached them. The ground began to shake vigorously, as if a peerless tide of beasts had appeared in the darkness, trying to devour the two. Not only that, countless sounds of the air being torn apart instantly rang out. Countless blood-red wind blades, like a peerless storm, surged towards the two of them. Let's go. Qin Nan grabbed Ji Jinzi's wrist and flew forward while executing a master art. Although he knew in his heart that all of this was merely an illusion, the formless atmosphere and the feeling of nothingness were all too real. This was the power of an advanced illusion. If they were hit by the wind blades, they would feel a great pain and even bleed. Sai, what do you want me to say? Wu Di was startled by the sight. He said helplessly, the illusion has already been activated, covering an area of 200,000 li. Why did you have to go this way out of all the places you could have gone? Humph humph, it's better if I'm the one saving you. Wu Di said with a proud tone, come, listen to me, head east. Qin Nan scanned his surroundings and saw an immeasurably tall cliff to the east. Without the slightest hesitation, he brought Ji Jinzi and rushed forward. In less than a breath's time, they heard a huge bang. The mountain wall shook, and shattered rocks flew everywhere. The two of them smashed into the wall for nearly 3 kilometers, and couldn't advance any further. Cough cough, it's a slip of the tongue, it's a slip of the tongue. Following the series of explosions, Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi finally rushed out from the lake after an hour. Even with their current cultivation, they could not help but pant heavily, as if they were in a sorry state. They had expended a lot of the power of the rules of cultivation in their bodies to deal with the danger. Ji Jinzi lifted her long hair and smiled. She seemed to be in a good mood. Qin Nan was a little confused. He asked, what's there to be happy about? Do you like being hunted? Ji Jinzi shook her head and said, that's not it. It's just that after the war broke out, Mother sent me away. I've always been facing all kinds of dangers by myself. I've never been able to advance or retreat with anyone before. I don't know how to put it, but I feel that it's quite comfortable. Qin Nan fell silent. Although Ji Jinzi was the daughter of the Supreme Empyrean and had a very high status, her childhood and everything she had experienced were far inferior to an ordinary person's. Qin Nan calmed the aura in his body and said with a calm smile, "There's still some distance left. I'll keep you company." Ji Jinzi was stunned. She teased, "Then you can't rush to the front next time. You're just an early-stage ruler, and I'm a peak ruler. I should be the one protecting you." Chapter 2287. Time gradually passed. On the third day, Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi arrived at the inner region of the middle profound realm. The effect of the seven-colored light was weakened once again, and the speed of the two slowed down even more. Ji Jinzi also took out the other half of the soul-amassing book, and followed that vague feeling as they continued to move forward. The other half of the spirit-gathering book is over there. Around 2 days later, Ji Jinzi came to a stop. Her eyes were filled with surprise. Qin Nan raised his head and saw 3 pitch-black mountains of similar height in front of them. They were located in different directions, surrounding a vast land. Right now, the sky had already darkened. Countless stars were hanging in the sky, flickering with a faint blue radiance that sprinkled over the blue sky. However, for some unknown reason, the boundless starlight was unable to shine into that piece of land. Qin Nan could sense an extraordinary aura surging from the place, which was far stronger than the forbidden grounds they had encountered along the way. "Cassiopeia, this place seems to be the land of size?" Zhou Xuandao said. "It's very possible. The land of size used to be divided by 2 mountains, which covered an area of 90,000 li. Now that the 3 mountains are divided by 330,000 li, it must have evolved in the past 10,000 years." Cassiopeia paused for a moment before continuing, "Master, you've come to the land of size with Song and the others when you were a Heaven Highness. It's a terrifying place. You were attacked by a mysterious force in less than an hour after you entered, forcing you to leave. Some Heaven Highnesses wanted to explore it, but they all died in the end." Qin Nan nodded. He was about to continue forward when Ji Jinzi grabbed his hand. Qin Nan turned around and asked in confusion, "What's wrong?" He said as a thought crossed his mind, "Don't worry, the land of size is terrifying, but it shouldn't be a problem with the 9-dragon seal." Ji Jinzi regained her calm. She said with a complicated look, "No, that's not what I'm worried about." Qin Nan was startled. "Then what's wrong with you? Now that we can gather your mother's soul, shouldn't you?" Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Jinzi pursed her lips and said in a low voice, "Qin Nan, thank you. If it wasn't for your help, I definitely wouldn't have been able to come here." Qin Nan smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to tell me this." Ji Jinzi nodded and grunted softly. She seemed to have figured something out, and she let out a long sigh of relief before she said, "Senior Zhou, Senior Jiayi, can I trouble the 2 of you to leave for a moment?" Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia's expressions turned even stranger. "All right, no problem." The 2 of them immediately nodded, and the corners of their mouths curled up into a faint smile. Qin Nan was confused. Everything was fine. What happened to Ji Jinzi? Ji Jinzi stared at Qin Nan. She wanted to laugh, but Sister Feiyue's body was too weak to do so. As such, Qin Nan was startled when he saw her glittering eyes. "Qin Nan, in the past, I've always been looking forward to the outside world with the greatest hope. However, no matter what I did, my father wouldn't allow me to leave the Heaven Court. My mother told me that he was doing it for my own good. I finally saw the outside world as I wished, but everything was so dark, cold, and dangerous. My heart died and I lost all hope, but I never thought I would be reincarnated, and Sister Feiyue even gave me a chance to reappear in this world. Furthermore, I suddenly realized that my previous yearning was not wrong. The outside world is truly beautiful. Even though the Blue Dome is full of danger, the past few days have been extremely brilliant for me. I know you're only doing this because of Sister Feyue, but I still have to thank you once again. Ji Jinzi said softly, as if her voice had become the only thing in the world. Qin Nan fell silent. His heart was filled with complicated feelings. Qin Nan, you might not know this, but Sister Feyue cares a lot about you. You're the person she cares about the most in her life. She also wants to marry you. She even wants to have a child with you. Qin Nan was startled. However, she doesn't know how to say it. Sister Feyue might seem cold, imperious, and unbeatable, but she's actually very thin-skinned. She's clueless when it comes to relationships. The same goes for you as a man. You shouldn't be so dull. You should be more proactive. When Ji Jinzi spoke to this point, she extended her jade-like hand and undid her robe, revealing her fair jade-like shoulders and the light muslin she wore underneath. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Was Ji Jinzi? Qin Nan. Ji Jinzi's glamorous face blushed. Her cheeks were blushing. Under the faint blue moonlight, it felt like she had just walked out of a painting. It felt like a dream. Sister Feyue, I'm sorry, I'll do it on her behalf today. This can be considered a gift from me to you. Ji Jinzi reached out her hand and grabbed Qin Nan's arm. She closed her eyes and slowly moved forward. Her long eyelashes were trembling slightly. Even though her action was very bold, she was extremely nervous on the inside. Since she was young, apart from her father, a few uncles, and the guards, she had never come into contact with any man her age. Qin Nan was the first, and he would be the last. She did not know if it was because of Sister Feyue's memories, or the feeling she had for him over the past few days. She simply wanted to end their short encounter. It felt like time had frozen. Her steady breathing landed on Qin Nan's face, together with the scent of her body, which gradually approached him. Qin Nan's mind went blank. When everything was about to come into contact, he subconsciously blurted out, "No." He reached out his hand and pushed Ji Jinzi away. Ji Jinzi opened her eyes. She was in a daze. Qin Nan's mind was in a mess. He did not know what to do. Ji Jinzi, Ji Jinzi's eyes flickered with a hint of disappointment. She quickly gathered her thoughts and said in a playful tone, "Look at you, you don't know what to say again? I was just teasing you." Qin Nan let out a relieved sigh and said with a wry smile, "It seems like I should learn more from someone else." Ji Jinzi said in a relaxed tone, "That's right, why don't you let me teach you? Ugh, on second thought, I don't think I have any experience in this either. Forget it, you should learn from someone else. We'll go inside first." Chapter 2288. In less than half the period it took an incense to burn, Qin Nan and Ji Yunshu had crossed a pitch-black mountain and entered the Sai Land. As soon as they entered the place, Qin Nan's eyes widened. Everything in front of them had turned even darker. An unfamiliar yet terrifying aura was surging around them. Wisps of crimson-red light flickered in all directions, as if several terrifying existences were standing there coldly. A kind of heart palpitations, fear, and other emotions inexplicably began to grow in their hearts. They felt as if they were two mortals who had barged into the habitat of countless ghosts and gods. They were as insignificant as dust. With just a light touch, they would be crushed into pieces. Whoosh! The seven-colored glow emitting from Qin Nan and Ji Yunshu's figures doubled. It burned like flames, lighting up the area within a few thousand li. Qin Nan could clearly see the crimson-red broken limbs and mysterious beasts crawling on them. Qin Nan and Ji Yunshu exchanged glances with one another. They proceeded forward like two ants stepping into the storm. The other soul-gathering book was only around 10,000 li away from them. It was not too far away, but it took them more than an hour to reach it. The forbidding auras they encountered along the way were a few times stronger than the ones they had encountered before. On top of that, some of the mysterious existences were staring at them with their crimson-red eyes, yet they did not attack them. The soul-gathering book. Ji Jinzi's mood became excited, and she couldn't help but quickly walk forward. 30 feet away from her, there was a 1.5-foot tall, mottled with scars, and extremely ancient stele. Beneath the stone tablet, there was a tattered scroll that was surging with boundless soul energy. "Wait!" Qin Nan immediately pulled her back and said, "There's something strange about the boulder." Ji Jinzi calmed her thoughts and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I was too impulsive." Qin Nan did not mind. He activated the immortal eyes of the divine god of battle and inspected the boulder carefully. After failing to discover anything strange, he transmitted his voice to Zhou Xuandao and Jiapa Kasayapa. "Kid, how are you so quick?" Zhou Xuandao was shocked. "My lord, you," Kasayapa was stunned as well. One had to know that the higher one's cultivation was, the more powerful one would be in certain aspects. Qin Nan was now a ruler of Dao. He had reached the peak of the 9 heavens immortal realm. It would take him at least a few hours to reach the peak. "What are you guys thinking? There's no such thing." Qin Nan's face darkened. "Qin Nan, it's not that I want to criticize you, but how can you let go of such a great opportunity? Besides, you and Empress Feiyue are already in love with each other. It doesn't matter if you use her body." Zhou Xuandao's tone was somewhat exasperated. "Yes, master. Ji Jinzi is Tsang's daughter. Now that she has fallen in love with you and you have become Dao companions with her, no matter how much Tsang doesn't care about his daughter, I'm afraid he will vomit blood in his heart," Kasayapa said solemnly. Qin Nan's mouth twitched. It was only today that he realized that these two people weren't that decent. "Alright, let's not talk about this. Do you recognize this stone tablet?" Qin Nan quickly switched the topic. This stone tablet does look familiar." Zhou Xuandao and Kasayapa's attention was successfully diverted. "I remember now, this stone tablet is the natal artifact of a Heaven Highness realm expert. It's called the Immortal Soul Departing Tablet. It's specifically used to suppress souls," Zhou Xuandao said. "Master, it's not difficult to decipher this tablet." Kasayapa flicked his finger and fired countless ancient words into Qin Nan's divine sense. "Give me a moment," Qin Nan said to Ji Jinzi before he began to comprehend the tablet. A few thousand breaths later, his eyes slowly sprang open. He immediately performed a series of hand seals and fired wisps of light into the tablet. Buzz! The immortal soul-departing cup did not react, nor did it resist. However, the land of disaster began to tremble slightly. The red glow in the surroundings grew brighter. All kinds of terrifying existences rose to their feet and paced back and forth. Their gazes and intents were locked onto Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi. The atmosphere became restless, as if it was going to explode at any second. Ji Jinzi summoned a blue sword with a cold look. Qin Nan continued to cast his art as if he did not see it. The situation lasted for half the period it took an incense stick to burn. The immortal soul-departing tablet shuddered slightly and moved 10 zhang away. Qin Nan let out a relieved sigh and said, "Jinzi, we can't restore the soul-gathering book here. We have to leave this place." As he spoke, he reached for the soul-convening book. Just as his fingertips were about to touch the soul-convening book, the invisible atmosphere suddenly snapped like a tightened string. The land of disaster began to tremble vigorously. Bang bang bang! Wisps of magnificent auras burst out of the place and swept across the place. Different kinds of light flickered and lit up the darkness as if it was daytime. Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi were startled. Even Zhou Xuandao and Jia Ye's eyes widened. These auras were simply too terrifying. Even a single one of them was enough to crush them into pieces, not to mention that there were hundreds of them right now. Bang! At that instant, it was as if an entire world had collided with the sighing land, causing the area within a few 100,000 li to turn into chaos and spin rapidly, absorbing all the light in the area. A giant hand that seemed to be made of blood reached out from the chaos and grabbed at Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi. Qin Nan could feel his scalp turning numb. It felt like the heavens and earth were about to shatter, as if everything was going to be destroyed by the giant hand. Humph! Sky-killing halberd, how bold of you! Didn't you sense that the kid was on my side? Wu Di's roar exploded in the surroundings. The 9 dragons seal that had been entrenched in Qin Nan's soul flew out for the first time and emitted a tremendous glow. Countless cries of dragons echoed in the surroundings. The giant blood-red hand instantly crumbled into pieces. In the chaos, the vague figure of a giant halberd over 10,000 zhang long could be seen. However, it did not stop there. Instead, it released a total of 5 blood-red hands, which once again clawed downwards. At that instant, a loud voice echoed throughout the land of sighs, as an ancient blue sun slowly rose into the sky. The outline of a giant pagoda was faintly visible within the sun. Chapter 2289. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless runes of various sizes were unleashed from the primordial pagoda. In the blink of an eye, they formed an incomparably vast river of runes that charged towards the 9 dragon seal at an astonishing speed. Tsk tisk, I'm only here for a stroll, and you two dare to team up against me. It seems like I've been gone for too long. Have you forgotten how I've taught you to behave? Wu Di's voice was filled with anger. The supreme authority was not to be disrespected. The light emitted by the 9 dragons' seal suddenly gathered in the air and turned into 9 enormous illusionary figures with 3 dragon heads. The illusionary figures roared into the sky and lashed out with their claws. Bang bang bang! A series of shocking explosions took place. The terrifying existences in the land of sighs fell to the ground and trembled in fear. In terms of strength, the strength that they could unleash was on par with the 9 dragons' seal. The sky-killing halberd, and the primordial pagoda were able to suppress them. Qin Nan and Ji Jinzi were like ants in the shocking clash. They could not interfere at all. However, Qin Nan could tell that the 2 mysterious artifacts were on par with the 9 dragons' seal when they worked together. The latter only had a slight advantage. Suddenly, a huge piece of chaos was shattered into pieces. A thick chain that seemed to be made of endless flames slithered out from the chaos like a venomous serpent. Its aura was on par with the sky-killing halberd and the primordial pagoda. Holy crap! The Dongwang Taishu chain? Why didn't you stay in the deeper part of the place? Why are you here to pick on me? Wu Di cursed out loud. Bang! The Dongwang Great Void Chain did not answer him. Instead, it swayed and smashed toward the illusory shadow of the 9-headed giant dragon with boundless thunderous momentum. One of the illusionary figures of the dragons was shattered into pieces on the spot. Countless thunderbolts surged in all directions. The 9 dragons' seal immediately sank 10 inches. Although this tiny 10 inches did not amount to much, its appearance was undoubtedly a sign. The 3 mysterious treasures had combined to suppress the 9 dragons' stone seal. Zhou Xuandao and Kasayapo were both stunned by this scene. After cursing for a bit, Wu Di transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. Qin Nan, I've acknowledged you as my master. Your cultivation isn't high enough, and I haven't recovered to my peak, so I won't be able to unleash my full strength. We're no match for the 3 of them. His tone was full of grievance. Since you've already gotten what you want, I'll immediately teleport you to the outermost perimeter of the Blue Dome. Leave the Blue Dome as fast as you can. After he said that, he complained, I don't know why these 3 guys suddenly went crazy. A magical force was swiftly unleashed from the 9 dragons' seal onto the figures of Qin Nan and his companion. Right at this moment, another change occurred. At the ends of the land of lamentation, majestic figures appeared one after another with tremendous auras, causing countless gusts of wind to blow in the rift, resulting in a shocking sight. Isn't that the formation of the 4 sacred sealing heavens and earth? Wu Di was startled. His expression soon shifted. Crap, someone must have set this up. As soon as he finished the sentence, the four majestic figures reached out their hands and slapped at the nine dragons' seal from afar. Countless red runes surged forward like a tide of snakes. Someone set this up? Qin Nan, Ji Jinzi, Zhou Xuandao, and Cassiopeia were startled. Following it, before Qin Nan could think further, a tremendous glow devoured them. Half an hour later, in the first immortal realm, thud, Qin Nan suddenly came to his senses. He immediately felt a great pain, as if his heart and lungs were being torn apart. His body was severely injured. In addition to it, he also felt a great pressure in his heart. He subconsciously opened his eyes and saw Ji Jinzi lying not far away from him. She had fainted, but her aura was perfectly fine. Is this the space-time battlefield? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with a blank expression as he sensed the various cultivation intense. The nine dragons' seal. He suddenly collected his thoughts. His expression changed tremendously as he quickly scanned his soul. He discovered that the ownerless heaven pattern and the seal of the undying cycle mountain had dimmed, but the nine dragons' seal was still at the center of his soul. However, unlike before, it was covered in dense blood-red runes. As the nine dragons' seal emitted a glow, the runes shrunk rapidly, causing the glow to dim further. Wu Di! Wu Di! Qin Nan immediately transmitted his thought, yet it was like throwing a stone into the ocean. Qin Nan's heart sank as a bad feeling rose in his heart. However, he did not panic. He quickly inserted wisps of the power of rules into the ownerless heaven pattern and the undying cycle mountain. Master, take a look. How is the nine dragons' seal? Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia almost said the same thing when they woke up. However, their voices came to a stop before they could finish. Seniors, is it sealed? Qin Nan said in a deep voice. From the looks of it, it is indeed sealed. Zhou Xuandao said with a wry smile. It seems like Tsang is behind everything. We've fallen into Tsang's trap. Ji Jinzi has tricked us. He and Cassiopeia were extremely regretful. They did not fully trust Ji Jinzi when they first asked her to swear the Oath of Soul and the Oath of the Inner Demon. After all, there were many ways to break the oath in the ancient era. However, they believed that with the might of the nine dragon stone seal, there would definitely not be any problems. Otherwise, they would have advised Qin Nan not to do it. He could have let the nine dragons seal show up and let Ji Jinzi enter the lamenting land on her own. Everything that happened after that wouldn't have happened. Ji Jinzi. Qin Nan looked at Empress Feiyue with an icy gaze. The icy gaze was not directed at Empress Feiyue, but Ji Jinzi. Whoosh! His arm broke into pieces, revealing the heaven-shattering saber. He was going to cripple Ji Jinzi's will with the heart-severing saber. Chapter 2290. Ji Jinzi's heart skipped a beat. Her attractive face instantly turned pale as she blurted out, Qin Nan, it wasn't me, I didn't lie to you. Qin Nan remained unmoved. He took a step forward and said, You don't deserve to be in her body. Ji Jinzi felt like her heart was being stabbed as she stared at the icy saber in the air. Tears welled up in her eyes. Qin Nan's arm stiffened. Oh my, who would have thought that the nine dragons seal would teleport you all here? It took me quite a while to find you. At that instant, a voice could be heard as an illusionary figure appeared from the rift ahead, who said with a smile, Oh Qin Nan, my daughter has always been honest. She has never lied to anyone, including you. The person was none other than Tsang's clone. Qin Nan raised his head. His eyes flickered murderously. Father! Ji Jinzi looked at this unfamiliar face and was slightly startled for a moment. She suddenly understood something and her expression changed drastically. Tears burst out of her eyes. Father, how could you do this? Even if you don't see me as your daughter, how could you use my mother's soul as your chess piece? She did not lie to Qin Nan. She did not lie to Qin Nan at all. The time she spent with Qin Nan was indeed the best time of her life, even though she was still regretful that Qin Nan had rejected her. However, she was not stupid. She soon came to a realization. Her mother's soul was perfectly intact, but her father purposely split her up. He left a part of it at the place where Empress Feiyue would find it. The other part was left at the Sighing Land. Her father had planned everything out. He wanted Qin Nan to enter the Sighing Land so he could use the opportunity to seal off the Nine Dragons seal. Qin Nan, Cassiopeia, and Zhou Xuandao were startled. The same thought crossed their minds too. Does it matter? Your mother's soul has already lost 3 parts of her soul. She can't be resurrected or reincarnated. Isn't it good to use it to deal with Qin Nan? Song shrugged with an indifferent look on his face. Ji Jinzi only felt as if there was a big hand in the dark clutching her soul. Even breathing was starting to hurt. She, her mother, and everything else could be used as pawns in his eyes. Seeing her like this, Qin Nan's killing intent towards her suddenly disappeared. Instead, he felt a trace of heartache. Her life had been bleak to begin with, but Song had dealt her heavy blows time and time again. Song, there's no need for the two of you to continue acting. Do you really think that we're that easy to deceive? Zhou Xuandao said coldly. 20 days ago you just became a ruler. You didn't have the time to set up this trap. In other words, you have been plotting since you were in the Master Realm. Even if you were in the Master Realm, what could you possibly do? Besides, even when you were at your peak, you didn't know how strong the Nine Dragons seal is. How could you be so sure that the 3 artifacts and the formation are able to seal the Nine Dragons seal? There were too many loopholes. Song looked down at the two and said with a calm smile, Elder Zhou, I'm not lying. Do you really think you can understand the trap I've set up? However, I'm in a good mood, so I don't mind telling you. I'll answer your second question first. It's true that I don't know how strong the Nine Dragons seal is, but I've tested it on Heavenly Venerable Wuang. With Qin Nan's cultivation, even if he found the Dao Ape tribe and executed the heart-severing move, there's no way Qin Nan could erase Heavenly Venerable Wuang's will. The only way to wake Tang Qinshan up was to use the Nine Dragons seal. The Nine Dragons seal did make its move in the nick of time, but even with its help, it only erased half of Heavenly Venerable Wuang's will. What does it mean? First, the Nine Dragons seal is just like the other artifact. It's limited by its master's cultivation. If its master's cultivation isn't strong enough, it won't be able to unleash its full power. Second, the power of the Nine Dragons seal isn't that terrifying. If I wasn't testing these 2 points, why would I ask Heavenly Venerable Wuang to come out? Why wouldn't I lend a hand in the nick of time? Why would I let Qin Nan erase Heavenly Venerable Wuang's will? Song wore an eerie grin. Qin Nan, Cassiopeia, and Zhou Xuandao were dumbfounded after hearing the words. Just for the sake of clarifying these 2 points, Song had actually sent his trusted aide, a Grand Empyrean, to his death? Aren't you shocked? Isn't it unbelievable? TSK, your awareness is too low. Song's eyes flickered with disdain. He said, I know how terrifying the Nine Dragons seal is better than you. He glanced at Qin Nan and said, once we seal off the Nine Dragons seal, you're no longer worth mentioning. Even if you upgrade the impenetrable sacred flesh to the indestructible flesh of eternity and master the art of the immortal demon, I won't put you in my eyes. Therefore, if I can seal the Nine Dragons seal, why would I care if my confidant dies? I don't care if my daughter dies. Song sounded like he did not care at all. His last few words also caused Ji Jinzi's exquisite and beautiful face to be completely devoid of any trace of blood, as pale as snow. Song, from what I've heard so far, it doesn't make any sense for you to lure Qin Nan into the Land of Sighs after discovering the seal's condition. However, you were only in the Master Realm at the time, your cultivation is still too. At this point, Zhou Xuandao suddenly thought of something and his pupils shrank sharply. Ha ha ha, Elder Zhou, It seems like you aren't confused after all. You finally understand. Song burst out laughing. His cultivation was indeed too low back then. He could not even enter the blue dome. In the nine heavens immortal realm, even eternal Knight Heaven Highness would not be able to enter the land of size in the blue dome on his own, let alone setting up a trap. However, there was one person that was an exception. One of the four Supreme Highnesses, Yi Zhaoxian. When Yi Zhaoxian was reincarnated, he was not only a peak ruler realm cultivator. He had been living in the Blue Dome since the ancient times. He was the one who was most familiar with the Blue Dome among the four Supreme Highnesses. Why is it him? Zhou Xuandao was lost in his thoughts. Yi Zhaoxian hated Song a lot during the ancient times. Chapter 2291. Elder Zhou, aren't you a little surprised? Why should you be? Since ancient times, everyone did everything for their own benefit. Yi Zhaoxian was indeed disgusted with me back then. However, the current era is completely different. If he wants to realize his ambitions, he can only join hands with me. You know what kind of person he is. As long as he can achieve his goal, he will do anything. Song smiled. Suddenly, he thought of something and sighed. To be honest, if I hadn't joined hands with Yi Zhaoxian, I wouldn't have been able to seal the Nine-Dragon Seal even if I was in the celestial venerable realm. What he said was the complete truth. When he joined hands with Yi Zhaoxian to set up this trap, it had been full of dangers. The murdering sky halberd, the primordial pagoda, the Dongwang Taishu chain, and the four saints sealing heaven extinction formation were all existences that they could not afford to provoke. He and Yi Zhaoxian had paid a huge price in order to get the three of them to gather at the Sighing Land and attack the Nine-Dragon Seal. They had lured the four saints sealing heaven extinction formation to the Land of Sighs, and Yi Zhaoxian had almost died. More importantly, after they finished setting up the trap, more than half of it was a gamble. If the murdering sky halberd, the primordial pagoda, and the Dongwang Taishu chain did not attack the Nine-Dragon Seal as they expected, then all their efforts would have been in vain. Moreover, even if only one of the three mysterious treasures had not been used, all their efforts would have been in vain. In addition, they had gambled that the three treasures could suppress the Nine-Dragon Seal and that the four saints sealing heaven extinction formation could seal the Nine-Dragon Seal. If it had been any other celestial venerable, they would definitely not have done so. However, as celestial venerables of a generation, Song and Yi Zhaoxian were not lacking in courage. Fortunately, they had won the gamble. This was also why Song was so happy and willing to talk endlessly to Zhou Xuandao about the details of their plan. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have said a single word. He wanted people to be imprisoned without knowing the truth. Oh right, I didn't come all the way here just to tell you this. I have two very good news to share with you. Song smiled warmly. Yi Zhaoxian and I will continue to work together until one of us becomes a supreme heavenly venerate. Then, we won't work together anymore. Secondly, saying this, he flicked his finger, firing a white ray of light to a distance of 100 zhang away. It then shattered on its own and turned into a 20 zhang wide barrier. Boom! Boom! All sorts of rumbling sounds could be heard from the light screen. Qin Nan, Cassiopeia, and Zhou Xuandao subconsciously glanced over and saw an image on the screen. In the image, the blue sky, the vast land, the mountains, the forests, the rivers, etc. were experiencing tremendous changes. Various glows flickered, storms, lightning, flames, and many other rare phenomena swept across the place, resulting in a chaotic scene. Qin Nan was startled. Qin Nan, isn't this a little familiar? Song said with a smile. This place is located in the middle of the Blue Dome. It's known as the Land of God's Breath in ancient times. Yi Zhaoxian and the rulers of Dao from other factions teamed up and came here. They altered the place and turned it into the battlefield of God's Breath. I believe they are going to set the rules now. A forbidden land, a battlefield, how it operated had its own core rules. For example, the Battle of the Masters. Those below the Master Realm and above were not allowed to enter, or they would be eliminated. Qin Nan and the others soon saw figures flickering in the sky. They included Ruler Ling Huang, Ruler Qingyu, and Progenitor Shuangdao. All of a sudden, an enormous golden lotus platform slowly appeared at the center of the formation. A figure stood on it. It was none other than Yi Zhaoxian. His aura skyrocketed as he performed a hand seal. His back emitted a brilliant glow as if he was the ruler of the land of God's breath. The battlefield of God's breath is now established. The first rule: those above the Master Realm and below the Heaven Highness Realm are allowed to enter. The second rule: any cultivator in the Master Realm is allowed to practice the seal of God's breath to enter the battlefield of God's breath. No ruler of Tao is allowed to attack cultivators in the Master Realm. Cultivators in the Master Realm are given 3 chances to save their lives when they are in danger. Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopei's eyes widened. The rules were meant to increase the number of rulers of Tao in the 9 heavens, immortal realm. With more rulers of Tao, wouldn't it mean more people were trying to achieve the Heaven Highness realm? The third rule: the battlefield of God's breath is only accessible once every 2 years. The fourth rule: Yi Zhaoxian's voice was like a great bell as he began to recite the rules one by one. The 35th rule: anyone with the name Qin Nan and the impenetrable sacred flesh in the primary upper realm is not allowed to enter the battlefield of God's breath. Anyone who tries to force their way in will be killed immediately. The rules are now in place. As soon as he said this, it was like a heavy bomb. The rulers of Tao were astounded. Yi Zhaoxian was targeting Qin Nan? What's going on? Ruler Qingyu, Progenitor Shuangdao, and Progenitor Shuangdao were startled. They were one of the people who had set the rules, yet this rule was not part of the rules they had set. Song waved his hand. The light barrier dissipated. He looked at Qin Nan and said with a smile, "It's only a little trick. There are many ways to force your way into the battlefield of God's breath. However, you no longer have the 9 dragons' stone seal. Furthermore, you have announced to the world that Yi Zhaoxian and I have joined hands. You have casually roped in several major powers and warned them. Most people in the 9 heavens immortal realm are your enemies. It's going to be tough for you when the time comes." Song grinned and said, "That being said, you're very strong too. Everyone's cultivation isn't that high, so you won't be in any danger for the time being. However, that won't be the case in a few dozen years. Either way, I'll give you a chance to kneel and beg for mercy." Song flung his sleeves and placed his hands on his back. He walked forward. Chapter 2292. Damn it! Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopeia wore displeased looks. So this is Tsang's doing? Qin Nan took a deep breath. His eyes turned cold as he clenched his fist. It had only been a few short months since Tsang Tian had appeared in this world. However, he had already laid down an inescapable net, firmly trapping him within. Thud! Qin Nan's soul shuddered all of a sudden, as if a peerless hammer had struck it heavily. Following it, a tremendous pain surged into Qin Nan's mind like a boundless ocean. It immediately drowned his thoughts, causing him to let out a great roar. Bang bang bang! In addition to it, a series of explosions took place inside his body. His body was covered in wounds. Blood poured out from the wounds and fell to the ground like flowers. His aura dropped rapidly too. He became extremely weak in the blink of an eye. Crap! The 9 Dragons seal has almost merged with his soul. Now that the 9 Dragons seal is under great pressure, he is seriously injured too. Zhou Xuandao was startled. He immediately fired wisps of immortal glow into Qin Nan's soul without hesitation. Art of the Great Reversal. Cassiopeia reacted swiftly too. He performed a hand seal and forcibly inserted his divine sense into Qin Nan's storage bag. He transmitted his voice to Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, and the others. This is bad. Qin Nan is seriously injured. Come to the middle battlefield at once. After that, he quickly changed his hand seal to help Zhou Xuandao. Qin Nan. Ji Jinzi immediately went up to Qin Nan and hugged him tightly. Her tears kept falling onto Qin Nan's face. A few moments later, Qin Nan's roar came to a stop. He completely lost consciousness as his head fell into Ji Jinzi's arms. The shocking injuries in his body were temporarily under control. Qin Nan, Qin Nan, Qin Nan, Ji Jinzi was crying. Her mind was completely blank. Shua. Zhou Xuandao's illusionary figure appeared. After seeing her reaction, he let out a sigh in his heart and said, "Don't cry, he's fine. He'll recover in no time." Ji Jinzi stopped crying, but her tears were still flowing. Zhou Xuandao wanted to say something, but Maha Kasyapa appeared and patted him on the shoulder. Zhou Xuandao stopped and remained silent. Ji Jinzi was also a pitiful person. 2 hours later, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Xue Mengyao, and the others rushed over from afar with anxious expressions. "What do you plan to do? Since you're heavily injured, why don't you return to the Undying Cycle Mountain with us?" Zhou Xuandao said. "Senior, I won't be going." Ji Jinzi rose to her feet. She stopped crying, but her eyes were a little red and swollen. She glanced at Qin Nan and said, "I'm going to release my mother's fragmented soul from the soul-gathering book and bury her. By the way, Senior, don't you worry, once I'm done, I'll erase her will on my own." Zhou Xuandao, Maha Kasyapa, and the others were left speechless. They nodded and left the battlefield. Ji Jinzi stared in the direction they left. She stood there for some time before she turned around and entered the battlefield. A day later, she found an ancient cave in a forbidden area. There was a type of ore called Heavenly Saint Immortal Ore growing inside, and each of them contained an extremely vast amount of pure immortal intent. Ji Jinzi sat with her legs crossed and absorbed the immortal intent into her body to repair the damage in her body. She did not want Sister Feiyue to be severely injured when she woke up. She took out the soul-gathering book and began to refine it. Another day later, she had successfully refined it, and she began to chant a series of incantations. The entire cave was filled with gusts of wind, as various sounds could be heard. Ji Jinzi reached her hand into the soul-gathering book. After searching for a while, she took out 2 pitch-black orbs and pushed them forward. The orbs broke into pieces. A strong soul force surged in all directions. A figure quickly appeared. Although it was very illusory, one could vaguely see that there was a faint smile on the figure's face. It was as gentle as water. Mother Ji Jinzi's eyes were wet. Various emotions surged in her heart. However, she did not cry. She withheld her emotions as her eyes glittered. "Mother, I'm telling you, I've reincarnated. I've stumbled into Sister Feiyue and Qin Nan. Sister Feiyue is so impressive. She had already started to comprehend the secrets of the 3 lifetimes when she was not even 15. Qin Nan is a little slow, especially when it comes to relationships. He's not as good as me. However, his martial talent is so outstanding, even better than mine. Besides, he didn't talk much at first, but he started to talk a lot as time went on. She told him everything that had happened during this period of time. As for Tsang, she had completely hidden it. In her heart, the man was no longer her father. Mother, Nai will send you away now. Even though you're currently in the form of a fragmented soul, preventing you from reincarnating, Nai believes that you will surely reappear in this world under the rules of reincarnation. When that time comes, I'll be your daughter, Ji Jinzi said with a serious expression. She then performed a hand seal. Cracks immediately appeared on this illusory figure. In the end, it silently shattered, turning into specks of light that filled the sky and illuminated the entire cave. Ji Jinzi closed her eyes. A strong gust of wind blew at her, disheveled her hair. Wisps of light burst out of Empress Feiyue's figure as an illusionary figure slowly rose from her body. Her hair reached her waist, and her facial features were glamorous. Her heart was slowly leaving her body, as it was about to shatter into pieces. Sister Feiyue, Qin Nan, thank you for giving me the happiest time of my life. Qin Nan, I'm sorry, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have fallen into Tsang's trap. If there's a next life, I hope we can meet again. I wish you, Sister Feiyue, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Xue Mengyao, and the others a happy life. She raised her head and looked into the sky. Even though everything was blurred in her eyes, she still bowed sincerely. The invisible rules of fate, I hope you can protect Qin Nan and help Qin Nan overcome the difficulties. The illusionary figure completely vanished. Chapter 2293. A while later, the fourth layer of the undying cycle mountain. Qin Nan sat on a golden lake with his legs crossed. Several water dragons appeared under him and entered his body. Not far from the lake, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Xue Mengyao, and the others were performing hand seals according to Zhou Xuandao and Cassiopei's instructions. They were executing mystical forces. An invisible great formation quickly took shape in the dark. Qin Nan's injury was inflicted on his soul. It was extremely rare to find a natural resource that could heal a person's soul in this era. As a safety precaution, the rulers of Dao were asked to team up with him. Time trickled by. Day after day went by. The Nine Heavens' immortal realm fell into a rare period of peace. Nothing serious happened. Meanwhile, the number of cultivators who went into seclusion, went on expeditions, and cultivated had decreased significantly. Most of the cultivators had gathered in the teahouses, restaurants, and secret palaces to discuss and wait patiently. The situation lasted for a month before it finally came to an end. An epoch-making piece of news exploded in the Nine Heavens' immortal realm like a thunderclap. Every cultivator was astounded. The Blue Dome, the battlefield of God Aura, the first battle between Heaven Highnesses had come to an end. One of the four Supreme Highnesses, the master of the 32nd small immortal realm, Yi Zhaoxian, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 7 Heaven Highness clans, Huang Yun of the Wang clan, ruler Duan Mu, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 7 Heaven Highness clans, the ruler of the Su clan, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 7 Heaven Highness clans, Li Pasheng of the Li clan, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 7 Heaven Highness clans, Zheng Di of the Zheng clan, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the Mumen sect's impermanence rulers had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 14 Supreme Taoism factions, ruler Ling Huang of the Sky Tai Huang sect, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 14 Supreme Taoism factions, Mingxin Bodhisattva of the Ancient Bodhi Temple, had achieved the Heaven Highness realm. One of the 14 Supreme Taoism orthodoxies, the 9 Palaces Golden Immortal Sect's Lord Feibao, had become a heavenly venerable. Taoist Lu Feng of the tribe of Immortal Spirits, one of the 100 ancient clans, had become a celestial venerable. Wandering cultivator Dark Owl Hegemon of the 4 devils, Hegemon Invisible Hegemon Yangling, had become an Empyrean. A total of 15 Empyreans. A total of 15 people have become celestial venerables? Weren't there only a few dozen sovereigns in this world? Is the Empyrean realm that easy to break through? You are too foolish. Do you know how long it has been since a celestial venerable appeared in this world, since the ancient war? Do you know how many of these rulers of Tao have been stuck at the peak for over 10,000 years? Ha ha ha, the new era is here, it's completely here. The battlefield of God Aura is only accessible once every 2 years. Even masters of Tao are allowed to enter. It's time for me to make my move. Countless voices could be heard. Among them was a white-haired, peerless ruler who had lived for over 3,000 years. He looked into the sky and murmured, "Don't get too excited yet. The 9 heavens immortal realm is going to undergo tremendous changes with the appearance of 15 heaven highnesses." The children behind him were all filled with curiosity. What kind of changes would happen? A day later, the 9 heavens immortal realm was in a great shock. Eternal Night Heaven Highness, who used to be the strongest cultivator in the primary upper realm, was infuriated and challenged Yi Zhaoxian to a duel in the first immortal realm. The duel lasted less than 5 hours, yet Eternal Night Heaven Highness was defeated. He had to flee for his life with serious injuries. Yi Zhaoxian was now the strongest cultivator in the primary upper realm. Meanwhile, Yi Zhaoxian announced to the world that he had formed an alliance with Tsang from today onward. They would advance and retreat together. On top of that, any faction that dared to collude with Qin Nan in the immortal realm would become their mortal enemy. Anyone who treated Qin Nan as their mortal enemy was allowed to join the alliance. If anyone could kill Qin Nan, he and Tsang would reward them handsomely. The Chun clan, one of the 7 Heaven Highness clans, 19 ancient tribes, and the 10 Desires sect, the illusionary immortal Tao Gate, and the Sky Inheriting sect all surrendered. The news did not last long, as another piece of shocking news exploded. The legendary Celestial Tree had come out of seclusion from the Tao-seeking land and returned to the Li clan. Her cultivation had reached the greater success stage of the Heaven Highness realm. Following it, the Li clan and the Wang clan announced that they had formed an alliance and would live and die together. Following it, the new alliance made its move. With the Celestial Tree as the leader, Heaven Highness Huangyun, Heaven Highness Duanmu, and Li Pasheng, the 3 authorities attacked the Wu clan and destroyed the forbidding auras. An hour later, the current patriarch of the Wu clan died in the sky. The previous patriarch of the Wu clan immediately took over the Wu clan and declared their surrender. After 2 hours of negotiations, the Wu clan submitted to the Li clan's alliance. The news immediately stirred a great uproar. In the following hours, a few ancient tribes and the remaining Supreme Taoism factions declared their allegiance to the Li clan. Meanwhile, the tribe of immortal spirits that had declined for tens of thousands of years opened their bloody mouth. Heaven Highness Lu Fang led the people of the tribe of immortal spirits to a great war in the 2nd and 3rd small immortal realms. The tribe of immortal spirits was like a peerless sword that slashed at the formidable tribes. Some of them were wiped out while others were subdued. It was the first time the heavens and earth had been unified since the birth of the heavens and earth. Even the Sure Dao tribe's brilliance paled in comparison. This day, without a doubt, would become the most resplendent stroke in the history of the past 10,000 years in the future. Even the birth of 15 new Heaven Highnesses was incomparable to it. The 9 heavens immortal realm had been reorganized. The 13 Supreme Taoism factions had evolved into 14 Supreme Taoism factions. In other words, there were only 2 Supreme Taoism factions left. The ancient Bodhi Temple, the 9 Heavens Golden Immortal Sect. Among the 100 ancient tribes that had existed for countless years, only one was left, the Royal Tribe of Immortal Spirits. Among the 7 Heaven Highness clans, only the Su clan and the Zheng clan were left. The new faction was the Yi Zhaoxian and the Tsangji Alliance. It was the strongest faction in the 9 Heavens Immortal Realm. The alliance of the Li clan and the Wang clan was slightly weaker. Chapter 2294. The next day, the Li clan's residence in the first immortal realm, unlike the past. Every corner of the Li clan was decorated with lanterns and colorful decorations. Various rare and exquisite rare phenomena were taking place in the air. Many places that the disciples of the Li clan would normally have trouble entering were now open, allowing various kinds of immortal intents to descend upon them. The disciples and elders of the Wang family, Wu family, and other forces arrived one after another from all directions. They were chatting with each other, and the scene was extremely lively. It had been 10,000 years since the Li clan last saw such a peaceful scene. On the other hand, the atmosphere in the meeting hall of the Li clan was extremely tense. The old man with black hair and white brows that the celestial tree had turned into was sitting at the main seat. On his left were the new patriarch of the Li clan, Li Pasheng, and the new patriarch of the Wu clan. On his right were the new patriarch of the Wang clan, Heaven Highness Huang Yun, and Heaven Highness Duan Mu. Below them were the rulers of Dao of various factions, the current patriarchs, and exceptional geniuses like Li Yangfan. They were the core of the new faction, King Li's alliance. There were only 30 of them. Even ordinary masters of Dao were not qualified to participate in the meeting. It's settled then. Cultivator Huang Yun and I will set up a dojo and give lectures for 10 days. In addition, all the sovereigns will be trained by the two of us for 3 months. The celestial tree made the decision. Sure. Heaven Highness Huang Yun, Heaven Highness Duan Mu, and Li Pasheng nodded. The new Wu family head's expression was a little awkward. Although he was on equal footing with the 4 of them, he didn't have the authority to make decisions when it came to matters of right and wrong. At most, he could only give his own suggestions. Now, let's talk about our attitude toward Qin Nan's faction. I won't beat around the bush. Based on the current situation, not only should we treat Qin Nan's faction as our enemy, we should also help them secretly when necessary. The celestial tree said. How can we do that? Heaven Highness Duan Mu immediately refuted. Yi Zhaoxian's strength is outstanding. No one among the Heaven Highnesses can match her. Besides, Song will surely achieve the Heaven Highness realm when the battlefield of divine aura opens again in 2 years. The 2 of them will be in charge of the future. All we need to do is to show them our attitude and befriend them. Besides, if we have the chance, we can team up with Song and Yi Zhaoxian to take down Qin Nan. The ownerless heaven pattern, the undying cycle mountain, and what Huang Fu Ju left behind. If we can claim a part of them, our alliance's strength will improve significantly. Many rulers of Dao were startled by the Celestial clan. Indeed, if they were to team up with Song and Yi Zhaoxian, Qin Nan's side would not stand a chance. Qin Nan's faction only had 1 Heaven Highness realm expert. Even Heaven Highness 4 Demon, who was also on Qin Nan's side, only had 2 Heaven Highnesses. Heaven Highness Duan Mu glanced at the crowd and said with an indifferent smile, Senior Tongtian, you're our alliance leader now. You shouldn't be swayed by your personal feelings before you make a decision. I was told that the relationship between your disciple and Qin Nan is quite close. He had always been dissatisfied with the Celestial Tree's role as the alliance leader. The heaven-reaching Dao Tree glanced at him but did not say a word. Li Yangfan remained expressionless too when she noticed the crowd's gaze. However, before Heaven Highness Duan Mu could finish, he was interrupted by a cold voice. Duan Mu, that's enough. Senior Tongtian is only doing this for the sake of our alliance. The person who spoke was none other than Heaven Highness Huang Yun. Heaven Highness Duan Mu was not convinced. He said, Senior sister, what's in it for us if we help Qin Nan? Heaven Highness Huang Yun let out a sigh in his heart. He said calmly, Let me ask you, do you think our alliance is comparable to Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian in the future? Do you think any of us can become a Supreme Highness after Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian regained their glory and became a Supreme Highness? Heaven Highness Duan Mu was startled. Senior sister, are you saying? Heaven Highness Huang Yun nodded slightly. He looked at the crowd and said, Everyone, we don't know how strong a Supreme Highness is. Only Senior Tongtian knows. However, there's one thing we don't doubt. If Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian become a Supreme Highness, the situation in the 9 Heavens immortal realm will surely change again. Many people nodded in agreement. The situation in the 9 Heavens immortal realm had already changed tremendously with the appearance of so many Supreme Highnesses, let alone the appearance of a Supreme Highness. However, there's no need to worry too much. According to Senior Tongtian and my speculation, if either Heaven Highness or Yi Zhaoxian becomes a Supreme Highness, their alliance will surely collapse. They might even turn against one another. It's a good thing for us. Besides, it's impossible for our alliance to become the strongest in the primary upper realm. What we need to do is to secure our footing in the new era and continue our glory. If that's the case, it's necessary for us to help Qin Nan secretly. Qin Nan is the only person in the primary upper realm who can stand a chance against Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian. If Qin Nan really rises, he will be able to reach a balance with Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian. He will even owe us a favor. However, if Qin Nan has no chance of rising again, it's not too late for us to change our plan. As he said those words, the sovereigns present all fell into deep thought. That being said, if any of you are determined to become Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian's lackey, feel free to mention it. A sharp glint flashed across Huang Yun's beautiful eyes. It was the reason why she had decided to form an alliance with the Li clan. She did not want to hand over the Wang clan's foundation that had lasted for tens of thousands of years. Unless either Tsang or Yi Zhaoxian united the entire primary upper realm, she would only lower her head if she had no other choice. It was not the time to do that yet. Senior Tongtian, it's my fault. I was too short-sighted. Heaven Highness Duan Mu immediately brought his fists together and said with a wry smile, "It's not your fault. It's just that you don't know Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian well." Celestial Tree waved his hand and said, "I'll take this opportunity to tell you about the battle in the past. I do know a little about Heaven Highness and Yi Zhaoxian's personalities." The secret discussion continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.